A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Get this and get it straight. Crime is a sucker's road, and those who travel it wind up in the gut of the prison of the grave. This time, a wrestler on the skids, a quick-change artist in an alley, and a girl with an eye for angles all met destruction because 100,000 easy bucks caught them in a strangle hold which none of them wanted to break.
From the pen of Raymond Chandler, outstanding author of crime fiction, comes his most famous character in The Adventures of Philip Marlowe. Now, with Gerald Moore, starred as Philip Marlowe, we bring you tonight's exciting story, The Strangle Hold.
Sometimes men climb all over themselves for a purpose, sometimes for relaxation, and most times for no reason at all. Take professional wrestling. I watched from the ringside while two gargantuan hulks contorted their features in mock agony and bulged muscles at each other on a mat surrounded by tiers of onlookers, screaming through their half-chewed popcorn. While the fans, as usual, howled for blood, booed the decision, hooted the departing contestants, and waited for the next comic act, laughingly called the main event. I went again over the letter I'd received 2 hours ago by messenger from one Manny Faber. It had included a ringside ticket to L.A. Wrestling Arena, a check for $200, and the request that I catch as much as I could stomach of the match between John, better known as Peachy Keen, and Jules Caesar, the Emperor of Brooklyn. After which I was to come to Faber's house for instructions that involved John Keene plus $100,000 of Manny Faber's money. So I watched a little closer as something that looked like a Sherman tank in a toga and leather sandals crowned with an olive wreath lumbered into the ring and sneered at the crowd. And since I'd long ago given up wrestling as a sport, I turned to the fan next to me wearing a derby on the bridge of his nose, waved a cloud of cigar smoke aside, and got some information.
Oh, Caesar? You get your money's worth out of him, all right.
Hey, what about this John Keene? How does he stack up?
Peachy, you kidding? He's a bomb. Stinko. No show. A blink down. Look, they're fixing the ring up for him now. Get this.
What's that, flowers?
Yeah, peach blossoms. There's two peach blossoms all over his corner. What stuff? 2 years ago, the stuff was okay, but now it's tired. You know what I mean? He won't even put on a show, little rascal.
He's still called a champ, isn't he?
Champ? Him? He won't even give you a laugh anymore. He's afraid of getting his pretty nose bent. What a bum. See, he'll climb up a nut. Here he comes like a... Yo-ho, Peachy! You bum! See what I mean with that profile? He ought to be a ribbon clerk instead of a wrestler.
Yeah. Hey, what's that on the back of his robe?
Are you kidding? That's a big peach, of course. Embroidered in gold on black silk. How do you like... Yeah. Go ahead. Hey, look, I hear them robes cost him $1,000 a piece. He thinks they make him hot stuff with the dame.
Maybe they do. Who's the brunette in there talking with him?
How should I know? There's always something like that. Now, look right down. Will you make it talk so much?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the feature event on tonight's program, a free-fall, no-limit contest of a wrestling. In this corner, at 278 pounds, the outstanding contender from the Atlantic Seaboard and Emperor of Brooklyn, Jules Caesar.
Are you kidding?
And in this corner, at 225 pounds, the undisputed champion of the Western Hemisphere, John Peachy.
As the match got underway and Peachy started out of his corner, a good-looking brunette shouted something at him that stopped him cold. He turned to glare at her, and Caesar slapped a hank on him that put Peachy flat on his back for fall number 1. 3 minutes later, with his head in a Gilligan, Peachy was well on his way to the mat again for fall number 2, which was enough for me, so I got up to leave. The brunette, I noticed, was leaving, too. And at the end of the exit tunnel, we came out side by side.
You got a match?
Huh? Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
It's a mess, isn't it, huh?
What's a mess?
The way things are going inside there. Peachy ought to change his line of work, don't you think?
Oh, what's it to you?
A laugh so far. What's it to you? You said something to him that knocked him for a loop, baby. What was it?
A personal matter.
Oh, how personal?
Oh, about like that.
Thank you, and step down, Philip Marlowe.
And you'd better step out, too, or I'll whistle for a gendarme. Nighty-night, Nosy.
So saying, she flashed a couple of daggers at me from her snapping black eyes, spun on 4.5-inch red patent leather heel, and was gone. So I drove up to Hollywoodland and the house at 2000 Beechwood Drive, where I was to meet my client, Manny Faber. The house looked like a two-room cottage from the street, but it ran for 3 stories down the backside of the hill. And all I did was touch the bell when the door flew open.
You're Marlowe, am I right? Come on in, Marlowe. I'm Manny Faber, head of Faber Transcriptions Incorporated. Produce radio shows, you know.
Yeah.
So you saw him, eh? You saw that big, crooked, four-fleshing, stupid, mat-pounding mastodon that calls himself Johnny Peach Keen, huh?
Yeah, I saw him.
Yeah. Oh, have a chair.
Oh, thanks.
Well, what do you think?
You just summed it up. What's that got to do with your $100,000, Mr. Faber?
You haven't seen the late editions?
No.
They're full of it. Peachy Keen is suing me for 100 G's for slander.
How can you slander a guy like Peachy? It's impossible.
I know that, and you know it. But does a court of law know it? No. In fact, they're going to make it stick.
No? How'd it happen?
I'll tell you. A very sweet guy named Frank Gaynor.
Yeah, I know him. A sports commentator.
Yes, he's been doing 5 a week on my label and going big. But 3 days ago, what we've been expecting for months finally happened. Rest his soul. A week ticker. And just like that, he dropped dead on the street. Heart failure.
Yeah, I read about it.
Well, Frank always kept 5 broadcasts ahead, see? Made tape recordings in his own little studio. So I've been running his last 5 shows as a final tribute to him.
Well, what happened?
Yesterday, the whole 15 minutes of his broadcast was devoted to ripping apart John Peachy Keen. Here, listen. I've got the tape here on the machine. This is one part.
A blight on the sports world. And furthermore, I have proof that
Get
John
that?
Peachy Keen has sold out to the highest bidder in small-time gambling circles in his last 3 matches. Now, I know for a fact that he has become so blatant in his underhanded dealings that even as dubious a business as professional wrestling cannot stand the sting. And officials have threatened to bar him from the ring.
Strong
I can
stuff.
show beyond a doubt that John Peachy Keen has falsified medical reports to evade tough competition, and that he eventually...
Yep. It goes on like that, Marlowe. Some of it opinion, most of it fact. And it's the facts that my lawyers tell me I've got to find the proof for or be a dead duck. That's why I asked you to come up here. Oh, excuse me. This
Sure.
is probably Ruth, Frank's wife. Nice show people once. Oh, hello, Ruth. Come in, honey.
Hello, Manny. I haven't been able to find a thing yet. I can't imagine where Frank got his information.
Oh, Ruth, shake hands with Mr. Marlowe. He's the detective I told you about. Mrs. Gaynor, Marlowe.
How do you do, Mr.
Glad to know you,
Marlowe?
Mrs. Gaynor.
Manny, here's the key to Frank's private studio at 6122 Sunset. It might be a good place for Mr. Marlowe to start.
Yes, all his files and equipment are there. Frank didn't like to work at home or at my plant on the strip. Wanted his own private setup. We looked there, but maybe we missed something.
Okay, I'll see what I can find. Oh, by the way, do either of you happen to know a good-looking brunette connected in some way with Peachy?
No, but he's quite a ladies' man, I understand.
Why, Marlowe?
That's just a hunch. I saw him talking to one tonight, a fireball. May mean nothing.
Well, I hope you'll be able to locate the proof of Frank's statements, Marlowe. We've got to find it for Frank. Also, it'll break my heart to pay $100,000 to a no-good meat heaver named Peachy Keen.
I promised Faber I'd keep in touch and left. I found Gaynor's little recording studio tucked into the second-floor corner of a small office building on Sunset. Unlocked the heavy soundproof door and went in. The room had a busy, cluttered look, as though Gaynor himself had just stepped out. A row of filing cabinets and a desk sat along one wall, and opposite them was the glassed-in booth with the tape recorders and microphone by which the solitary sportscaster had canned his radio programs. I dug through the files and found a folder labeled John Keen. It held only a sketchy history of the wrestler. Some publicity pictures and a few clippings, one of which rated a long second look, because it was topped by a picture of the same brunette I'd seen at the ringside. It was captioned, Carla Bennett leaves for West Coast. I started to read the story when there was a sound at the door behind me and the lights went out.
Don't move, Mighty. I'll kill you on the spot if you do. Up against that window, you make a perfect target, you know. So don't try anything cute.
What do you want?
A little more than I'm getting, it's what. I'm entitled to it, I am. The service is rendered, you might say.
I can't help you, Buster. You've come to the wrong man.
No, but not to the wrong place, huh, Mighty? So, first things first, like I always say. Looking around, Marty. Yeah, it's not. Bartell getting it. Sleepy boy.
All right. Don't rush me. Oh.
Marlowe, where were you? Is something wrong?
Yeah. As long as a limey showing up here to put this... Ooh. Put the slug on me.
Limey?
Yeah.
Who was it? Why'd he slug you?
Good questions, Faber. Hey, does the name Carla Bennett ring any bells?
Carla Bennett?
Yeah.
No, I never heard of her. Huh? Oh, just a minute, Marlowe. Here's Ruth.
Huh?
Marlowe, I remember that name.
Yeah?
I'm sure Frank interviewed her once. Carla Bennett used to be Mrs. John Keene.
Peachy's ex-wife?
Yes, I'm positive. Why, is she mixed up in this?
I don't know. The limey who slugged me apparently took a newspaper clipping about her when he left. At least it's gone.
Marlowe, this limey, was that all he was after?
Yeah, he said he wanted more than he was getting. Hey, but look, Faber made this call. What do you want?
To tell you that he'll be out checking on a few things himself. That's all.
Oh. Oh, by the way, Ruth, any idea where this Bennett dame might be found?
No, I haven't, Marlowe.
No.
I think she was staying at some woman's hotel on Vermont Avenue when Frank interviewed her at that time.
Vermont.
But that was over a year ago.
Maybe she's a lady of habit. I'll try it anyway. Thanks, Ruthie. There were 3 exclusively female hotels on Vermont. And the second one I called had a Carla Bennett registered. So I went out to my car and babied my aching head down Vermont to the Victoria Plaza Ladies Only Hotel. The lobby was done in ivory and pink with desk clerk to match, and the nameplate tagged as Mr. Seymour Pratt. I started over but stopped when I spotted about an acre of peach-colored suede coat wrapped around John Peachy Keene himself, lumbering up the stairs at the back of the lobby. Mr. Pratt saw him at the same time and darted from behind the desk like an angry canary after a rhinoceros.
Just a minute, you. This is the ladies' hotel.
So what? I got to see the one in 212.
Not this way, you don't. Why, it's after midnight. If Miss Bennett wishes to come down to the lobby, that's her affair. But no men are allowed upstairs after 10 p.m.
Okay. How can I get in touch with her?
Use the house phone, naturally. Over there in that booth. I'll go right back to the board and plug you in. I'll be with you in just a moment, sir.
Ducky, I'll wait.
A call for you, Miss Bennett.
Good listening, huh?
Now, see here. You know perfectly well you're not supposed to come back to this desk. This is for employees only.
What about eavesdropping? Is that for employees only, too?
Oh, why, how dare you
Save it,
accuse me of-
Seymour. The guy in the booth there is a professional wrestler. If he finds out you're listening in, he'll tear your arm off and beat you to death with it. Better let me take over. Here, give me the earphone.
Now, wait.
Come on, give it to me. Okay. Now sit there like a good boy. Keep the key open and your trap shut.
Well, it's no surprise. Where are you now, John?
In the lobby, in the phone booth. You better come down, Carla.
No, John, I'm tired. Will you call me
Now,
tomorrow?
wait a minute. What do you mean by that crack you made tonight when I was in the ring?
Just what I said. I want a nice big slice of that $100,000 you're getting from Manny Faber.
Why, you're crazy. What makes you think I'd give you one lousy penny?
You will, gladly. You see, John, I know all about those visits you made to the Lyceum Theater. One of us come back to L.A., hasn't it, darling?
Why, you sneaking...
Oh, shut up. After the life you led me for 4 years, you big ape, I'm entitled to all I can get. And that'll be plenty. So I advise you to run right back now and tell your friend that I know all about your little scheme. And talk it over good, John. I'll be waiting to hear from you.
All right. I'll do just that. And you're sure going to be sorry you stuck your nose into this one, Carla.
Real interesting.
Are you quite finished now?
Yes, and you were a big help, Mr. Pratt. Oh, there he goes. Peachy swag coat and all. So long, Seymour.
In just a moment, the second act of Philip Marlowe. But first, Horace Heidt and his famous Youth Opportunity Program have joined Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen, Red Skelton, Jack Benny, and the other top-ranking entertainers who make CBS Sunday nights a must. Enjoy these 30 minutes when Horace Heidt takes over on most of these same stations Sunday night this fall.
Tune in this fall for the shows that you love best of all.
Listen carefully.
Here's the address. It's CBS.
Now, with our star, Gerald Moore, we return to the second act of Philip Marlowe and tonight's story, The Strangle Hold.
When Peachy Keen slammed out of the phone booth, he was burned to a crisp. He stomped out of the woman's hotel via the back door that opened onto the parking lot. And when I got there, it was already out of sight. I stopped in the shadows to figure out which way he'd gone, but skipped that as the back door opened again. This time it was Carla Bennett. She ran across the lot, hopped into a new green convertible, and got as far as switching on the lights before still another character pranced into the headlight beams like a veteran ham making for upstage center.
Bennett! Hey, Miss Bennett, wait, I gotta talk to you.
I couldn't tell where the first one came from. I only heard it. It brought the little man up on his toes and arched him like a drawn bow. I saw the flash of the second one. It came from the alley and crumpled it into a pile. A moment later, a more roared, and I ran to where I could see with a pair of taillights twisting onto the side street. It was all the good it did me. I went back to the body of the little man as Carla Bennett climbed out of a car. She was white from shock, and the headlights and makeup was garish. It belonged on a clown. The back alley harlequinade was suddenly very grim.
He was shot, mister, right in front of me.
Who's the little guy, Carla?
I don't know. I never saw him before. You know my name?
Yeah. We met at the wrestling arena earlier tonight, you remember? Marlowe, private detective. Now, come on, Carla, let's have it. What's his name?
I don't know, I tell you.
Okay, we'd better find out fast. Let's take a look at his wallet.
No! It's none of my business. I'm getting out of here.
Wait a minute. He wanted to talk to you pretty badly, baby. Very likely about $100,000.
Huh?
If I were you, I'd stick around.
You've got awfully big ears, Mr. Marlowe.
Yeah, better to hear phone conversations.
What?
This guy's an actor. He's got an equity card. Name is Seth Cameo. Mean anything?
Not to me. Unless...
Unless what? Unless he happens to work at the Lyceum Theater? As you said, Carla, Vaudeville's back in town, and that brings up another point you better
What's going on out here anyway? I thought I heard shots.
You did, Pratt. They came from the alley
Oh,
there.
so it's you again. I might have... That man there on the ground. Good heavens, is he dead?
Yeah, he's murdered.
Oh, no.
Help! Help me! Murder! Help!
That jerk.
I'm getting out of
Not
here.
alone, you're not. I'm going with you.
Listen, Big Ears, I can take care of myself. Will you beat it?
That's not the point, sister. I still want to talk to you. Get in. Now go out that way to the street, not too fast.
All right. Since you're running things, where are we going?
The Lyceum Theater. On the way, you can tell me why your ex-husband Peachy's been hanging around there.
I don't know why.
Who's the friend he's been seeing? Was it Cameo?
I don't know that either.
Now, look, for Pete's sake, do I have to draw you a picture? A man was shot down right in front of you. Doesn't that convince you? You're bucking the same opposition, baby, and believe me, this is no time to hold out. Not in this league.
I'm not.
All right.
Well, that stuff you overheard on the phone was pure bluff. I accidentally ran into John a couple of days ago near the stage door of the Lyceum. He acted funny like he was waiting for somebody and very nervous about it.
You didn't see who it was?
No. I waited until 3 girls and 2 men had come out one after another, but they were cagey. I couldn't tell which one John was waiting for. And then I heard about this slander suit of his, and I figured something was screwy.
So you took a swing in the dark tonight and connected, huh?
Good and solid. When I told him on the phone to go back to his friend, I knew he'd be just stupid enough to do it, and that's why I came out so fast. I wanted to follow him and find out who else was involved before I got in too far.
You're already in too far, baby. You got more nerve than good sense, even for $100,000. You don't believe me? Ask Cameo. There's the theater. Park here. We'll walk over.
Look, tell me something, Big Ears. Suppose Seth Cameo did work here. What's it going to prove?
All depends on what we find to go with it. He was killed to keep him from upsetting the apple cart. One way he could have done that would be to have proof of what Frank Gaynor said in his broadcast about Peachy.
Sure, but fitting a vaudeville actor at the Lyceum into that slot doesn't make sense.
No, but... Yeah, there it is. Cameo's placard. We were right.
Yeah. Seth Cameo, the one-man all-star cast. See Lionel Barrymore, Betty Davis, Harry Drucker, Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, and many others. Denise Glenn played in a split-second changes by the world's most versatile one-man cast. Seth
Sure, he was a mimic. A guy like that would have dialects, lots of them. So maybe Seth Cameo was the boy who slugged me in Gaynor's studio. He was careful to turn out the light first, and he threw that limey jibe at me to toss me off the track. And what's more, he... Uh-oh, we got company.
Where?
There's a little geezer over there.
What are you doing there? Theater's closed. Last show's been over for hours.
I know, you're the night watchman.
That's right. Now, you better move along, kids. No loitering around theater.
Just a minute, Pop. This Seth Cameo, does he have a limey number in his act?
Why don't you come back tomorrow and ask him?
Oh, that's tougher than you think, mister.
How about it? Does he do a limey?
Limey? Well, now, let's see.
Cockney, English.
No, don't think so. Might have at one time, though. Been in the business for years. Good man, too. Best quick changer I ever seen.
Has he got a scrapbook or something in his dressing room, do you know?
Well, yes, he has. Got a box there with every bill he's ever played on in it. Most actors do. But the theater's all closed now, fella.
Well, you've got a key, haven't you?
Look, Pop, it's important. We got to find out right away.
No, I'm sorry, Sonny. Can't do it.
Look, it's real important. Take a good look. Very important.
$10.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, I guess it wouldn't do any harm if you just want to look.
The old man slid the 10 into his pocket like he wouldn't admit it even to himself, and led us in the stage door, down the stairs, and with his flashlight along the dark hallway to Seth Cameo's dressing room. He unlocked it, reached in, and turned on a tired little lamp, and pointed out a box on a trunk near the back. We picked our way over to it through a jumble of costumes that had been period pieces at the turn of the century. The box was lined with sentimental posters, and inside was a man's life, in stacks of programs and playbills. It began with a crisp current appearance and then ran back through all of Seth Cameo's dusty yesterdays. Didn't take long. Maybe 5 minutes.
Here. This is it, Marlowe. Exactly what you're after.
I see that. Parthenon Theater, Kansas City, September 1940. Seth Cameo of London. In Piccadilly Circus, His Majesty Navy Limehouse. Sure! This is it, baby. Seth Cameo and Limey were one and the same.
And where does that get you?
Yeah, it gives me an idea.
It gives me one, too. You found what you wanted. Now, let's put everything back like it was and get out of here.
In a minute, Pop. I want to check something else.
Now, look, Sonny, this is dead against all rules. I'm getting jittery.
Wait a minute. Hold it. I heard something upstairs. Did you lock the outside door, Pop?
Oh, come now, fella. Be a sport. That's an old stunt that just won't work. That door's got a snap latch.
I heard it, too, that time. There is somebody up there.
Huh? Yeah, you're right. Dad, blame it, I was afraid of something like this. Now, look, you two. You stay right here and don't touch nothing till I get back. You hear? I'll go see what it was.
Better switch off the lights, Carla. The brakes are going against us.
What do you mean?
Well, all this after-hours theater business can't be coincidence. Well, he came in upstairs. There's trouble on his mind. Oh. You asked for a payoff, baby, and that's what you're going to get. Only the bank won't handle it. The morgue will.
Hey, you. What you doing here?
You the night watchman around here?
Oh, Marlowe, it's John.
Yeah, peachy keen. No pun intended.
To the girl that's in here. I want to see her.
Hey,
take it easy.
Here. Now, you go on. Get out.
Don't lie to me, Grandpa. Her car's parked across the street.
You know it.
I thought she could be. Now, where is she? Come on, I mean business.
Now, listen here. Don't you give me none of your sass, son. You just clear out there.
Oh, my.
Crazy old fool.
We got the watchman. You better clear out, Carla. He'll be down here in another minute. Now, look, go up that way and cross the stage. Go to 2000 Beechwood. It's the one place Peachy won't go. Manny favors. And stay there till I call you. Understand? Never mind. Beat it, will you? Go on.
Be careful, Big Ears.
Carla moved off into the darkness. I saw at the other end of the hall the inquisitive beam from the flashlight poking at the dark corners as Keen eased down the stairs. I got my gun into my hand, plastered my shoulders against the wall beside the open door, and waited. I didn't have long to wait. I heard him stop in the hall outside, and then the beam of the flashlight crept over the floor and up to the wall, and then slowly, carefully circled the door frame.
Carla?
I heard him moving closer. And the barrel of a snub-nosed revolver inched into the room.
I know you're in here, Carla.
I waited until I could see the big fist wrapped around the gun. And I brought my 38 down hard. His gun flew to the floor, and I swung again for his head.
Why, you?
The rest will only blink and lunge for me.
I'll kill you.
Not tonight, Peachy. I may need it.
I get hands on you.
What's your problem, big man? Fall down, will you?
I'll get you up.
Go down and stay down. Oh, you gotta chop that guy down like a tree. It had been short but vicious. And the one punch he'd landed had shaken me to my shoelaces. The wreckage of costumes, props, and a lifetime of old theater programs was scattered over the room like big moldy snowflakes in the crazy ankle-high glare from the still burning flashlight. As I sagged down onto a trunk to catch my breath, I saw something that brought me right back to my feet again. An illustrated program from the King's Theater in Buffalo that gave me a new slant on the whole mess. It billed Seth Cameo as the man with 1,000 voices, the perfect mimic. And the act that had followed him for a 30-week run was a girl whose face I knew well. I ran out of the theater into the nearest cab stand where I sent one driver to get the police over to the theater, and with another, I headed for Manny Faber's place on Beechwood, and what I was positive would be another murder. When I got to the front door, I knew there was no need to hurry. It was all over.
Come on in, Marlowe. I've got news for you.
It was Carla with a gun in her hand. And on the floor in the corner, her face tight with pain, was Mrs. Ruth Gaynor, glaring hate up at me like a wounded panther.
There she is, Marlowe. I recognized her as soon as I saw her. She's the one Peachy was waiting for outside the Lyceum Theater. They've been working together all this time to frame that slander suit against Faber.
Yeah, I know. But I didn't expect to find you like this. What happened?
She knew I recognized her and pulled this gun on me.
The one she used on Seth Cameo, no doubt, huh?
Uh-huh. She was going to use it on me, too. But I was way ahead of her. She's only in love with John Peachy Keene, but I was married to him for 4 years, and you don't live with a professional wrestler that long without picking up a few tricks.
They call you the weaker sex. What is it, Ruthie? Your elbow? Is it broken?
Let me alone, you two-bit flatfoot.
I'll call a doctor and get you fixed up. For one reason only, I don't even like to see a Black Widow spider suffer.
More coffee, Miss Bennett?
No, thank you, Mr. Faber.
Well, I don't blame you. I've got no appetite either. You know, Marlowe, I always liked Ruth. And I thought she liked me.
As long as you represented a buck, she did.
And I've got to admit that she and the wrestler were clever, though. That stunt almost worked.
She was clever. John Keene is 225 pounds of solid jerk.
Yeah, it was all her idea. She was in love with Peachy, and when Frank died, she saw a great opportunity.
Especially with that mimic being in town.
Sure, Seth Cameo is an old friend of hers. She and Peachy wrote a highly slanderous script. She got Cameo to record it on Frank's machine, imitating Frank's delivery.
Yes, and I broadcast it and stabbed myself in the back.
Exactly. And we'd never found out any of this if a couple of other characters hadn't tried to cut in. First, Cameo, who felt he'd been cheated when he learned the job he'd done was worth $100,000. Ruth had to shoot him to keep him quiet. Second, little Carla here.
Oh, Marlowe, please. With me, it was just good, healthy spite.
Spite, huh? What's stronger, baby, spite or dough?
Well...
See what I mean? Good night, Mr. Faber.
Good night.
Come on, Carla, let's go. We didn't go home directly. We went on up Beechwood Drive, high into the Hollywood Hills, and parked where we could look out over the sparkling, sprawling city. And then we talked about Carla, her life, relative values, the city below us, and the dark hills above. And then, as we watched the first faint glimmer of dawn rise in the east, we both realized something. Not original, not very complex, and certainly not sophisticated, but very gratifying. In the final analysis, the best things in life, we both agreed, are still free. You know what I mean?
The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, bringing you Raymond Chandler's most famous character, star Gerald Moore, and are produced and directed by Norman McDonnell. Script is by Robert Mitchell and Gene Levitt. Featured in the cast were Vivi Janis, Ted Von Eltz, Charlotte Lawrence, Barney Phillips, Tony Barrett, Peter Leeds, and Junius Matthews. The special music is composed and conducted by Richard Orant. Be sure and be with us next week when Philip Marlowe says...
I didn't know it, but I was caught in a smokeout that led from a search for a lady in black, past murder at a highway inn, to gunfire in a crumbling warehouse. And all for a girl already dead in the morgue.
This fall, you hear them all on CBS. Red Skelton and Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen have joined the parade to CBS on Sunday evenings. And be sure to hear The Contented Hour with Dinah Shore tomorrow and every Sunday over most of these same CBS stations. This fall, you hear them all on CBS. This is Paul Masterson speaking. Now stay tuned for Gangbusters, which follows immediately over most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Sloan's Liniment presents Gangbusters. At war, marching against the underworld. From coast to coast, gangbusters, police, the G-men, our government agents, marching against the underworld.
Tonight, the case of a ghostly prisoner roaming the countryside unrecognized. A mountaineer farmer with a mysterious complex about burglary. A murder in a trailer camp. That's tonight's Gangbusters.
Now picture our setting as a special office turned over to gangbusters by Commissioner Louis J. Valentine of the New York City Police for a proxy interview between Colonel H. Norman Schwarzkopf, United States Army, and Edgar Sims, Chief of Police, Alexandria, Virginia. Colonel Schwarzkopf.
Chief Sims, in these times of hidden enemies within our nation, tonight's case is very timely.
It is, Colonel Schwarzkopf, and tonight's case is a very exciting one. You make it sound very unusual, Colonel.
It is, Frank, about an unusually vicious criminal.
Well, Colonel, I don't want to seem to step over into your department, but I know a criminal who in his way is just as undesirable. I'm talking about muscular distress, and anyone who has felt that insidious sudden ache or pain knows just what I mean. Still, I'm happy to report this particular felon has met his match. For the past 50 years, Sloan's Liniment has been busy driving the soreness and stiffness out of aching, painful muscles, bringing quick and comforting relief to millions all over the world. Sloan's is the pat-on liniment that works like a heat treatment. All you do is pat on Sloan's. That's all. Just pat it on the sore place. And then like a heat treatment, that gentle warmth seems to get right at that knot of trouble in your stiff neck or sore back. If you happen a bottle of Sloan's on your medicine shelf right now, be sure to ask your druggist for Sloan's Liniment when you're doing your shopping tomorrow. All right, Colonel Schwarzkopf.
Well, Chief Sims, at what point do you intend to start tonight's case?
August 21st, 1938, at 7:15 that morning, in an outlying section of McCreary County in the Kentucky hills, Mrs. Godfrey was struggling with a dog in a farmyard.
Now, hold still. Open your mouth, Tiger, like a good dog. Lie still there now. Here, Tiger. Open your mouth.
Howdy, Mrs. Godfrey.
Oh.
What's the trouble?
Plenty's the trouble, Mr. Buchanan. Help me with my dog here, will you?
What's the matter?
He's been poisoned. Hold his jaws open while I pour this vinegar down his throat. Now, look out he don't bite you.
Yeah, I got him. But just vinegar won't help him. I don't reckon.
Why, vinegar's always good for poison, so I've heard.
Yeah.
Quiet. Hold him, Mr. Buchanan. Oh, knocked the vinegar bottle right out of my hand.
Look out. I gotta let him go. He's trying to bite me.
I never thought you had it in you to shoot even a dog, Mr. Buchanan.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Godfrey, but he was in such pain he'd have bitten both of us.
Poor Tiger. I guess we should have shot him ourselves when we first found him like this.
How long ago was that?
Half an hour ago, just before Mr. Godfrey left.
Where'd Mr. Godfrey go?
Sheriff. Somebody poisoned Tiger and then robbed the house while we was asleep.
That's right funny.
What?
I got my trailer parked over at the tourist camp in Pulaski County.
Well, what about it?
Well, just before I left the trailer camp, I heard 3 farmhouses over there were robbed last night. And in every case, the dogs were poisoned.
Well, we'll see what the sheriff has to say.
Oh, I suppose, Mr. Buchanan, you brought the wicker seat and willow basket I ordered last spring.
Yeah. I've got those things already woven for you, Mrs. Godfrey. They're right in the car, and I'll get them for you.
Attention, all Southeast Kentucky sheriffs and police. 8 houses burglarized last night while occupants were asleep. Watchdogs poisoned before each robbery.
So there you are, Mrs. Godfrey. Looking at cars yourself tonight, huh?
Oh, Mr. Buchanan, you're quite a stranger. You didn't stop by on your way north this spring.
No, I didn't, Mrs. Godfrey. This year I got some wonderful new baskets to sell.
Oh?
I wove every one of them myself. Mr. Godfrey home?
No. Seems like Mr. Godfrey's never home when you call, Mr. Buchanan.
Matter. I'm worried.
Well, Mr. Godfrey does go away from home a heap more than he used to. He ain't been the same since that time we got robbed last year.
How do you mean, ma'am?
Well, he swears he's going to catch the burglar who robbed us and kill him. He's left standing word with the sheriff to call him up any hour, night or day, when there's another burglary hereabouts.
You mean there's been more robberies since last year?
Oh, mercy me. One last night over in Wilton and another one night before last in 4 Acre. Mr. Godfrey says there'll be another one tonight, too.
Another tonight?
Mm.
How does your husband get all this advance information?
Seems like he just feels it in his bones. Like last night. Why, Mr. Godfrey was off to the sheriff's on a hunch almost 3/4 of an hour before the sheriff called him up about the Wilton robbery.
These robberies have been going on regular in these parts, Mrs. Godfrey.
Yeah, they sure have. They come and go by spasms. Well, if you'll come up to the house, I'll look over your basket.
Here, let me carry those milk trails.
Oh, thank you.
But you get a little frightened, Mrs. Godfrey, staying alone so many nights when Mr. Godfrey's away?
No, Mr. Godfrey's going to fix up the farm with burglar alarms. We won't depend on a watchdog anymore.
Oh.
Attention. 3rd burglary in Southeast Kentucky on 3rd night in succession. Godfrey Farmhouse, pillaged 2nd time in 2 years. Watchdog poison.
Warning. New outbreak of robberies in Greene County, Tennessee. Same localities burglarized as were looted mysteriously last year at same time.
Colonel Schwarzkopf, the Cumberland Mountain region was up in arms by this time, but the wave of burglary subsided as quickly as it had arisen, just as it did the year before. Then another year passed.
And another epidemic of robberies broke out, Chief Sims?
Yes, but not in the same territory, Colonel Schwarzkopf. From July to November 1940, dwellings were burglarized through northern Virginia. In the office of Fairfax County, Virginia, Detective Henry McGarrity and Detective Lieutenant A.R. Stanley of the Alexandria City Police questioned one of the recent robbery victims.
Mr. Wilkins, just before your house was burglarized, there were a couple of strangers seen around your place.
Yes, Detective Stanley. The day before my house was robbed, a fellow came around and he tried to sell me some baskets and seat covers he'd woven.
Came around to sell you woven baskets and seat covers, huh?
Yes, Detective McGarrity, and the next day he came back again.
Returned the day after the robbery, huh?
Yes, sir. He said he thought that I'd told him I might think over buying some of his goods.
Did you ever see this man before, Mr. Wilkins?
No, but he sold one of my neighbors a willow bark basket. And he mentioned having a trailer over at the tourist camp by Alexandria.
What about the other man who came to see you, Mr. Wilkins?
Well, he acted kind of like a nut. He said his name was Godfrey, and he came from down in Kentucky. Said his own house had been robbed twice, and 2 of his watchdogs killed, and it got him so mad that he's been chasing around the country ever since, trying to catch the burglar who did it. He's supposed to be the best shot in Kentucky, too.
Didn't you tell me this Godfrey showed up at your house a few hours after the robbery?
Yes, sir.
Must have driven like the wind to get here from the Cumberland Mountains. It's over a 600-mile trip. The report on the robbery didn't go out on a teletype until nearly dawn, did it, Lieutenant Stanley?
5:25 to be exact.
A basket wheeler at a trailer camp in Alexandria, and a mountain farmer from Kentucky, both showing up the day after Wilkins' house was burglarized. Something very strange here.
Chief Sims, I know this case is approaching its climax.
And the most stirring and spectacular one, too, Colonel Schwarzkopf.
Yes, but before you tell us about it, Frank Gallup would like to make a few predictions.
Well, predicting the future isn't as difficult as it sounds, Colonel Schwarzkopf.
For instance, I can predict right now that hundreds of thousands of people are going to be plagued by muscular aches and pains during the next 6 or 7 months. How do I know? Because that time of year is known as liniment time, when folks everywhere count on Sloan's to avoid needless discomfort caused by simple muscular distress. Most of them are already prepared, with a full bottle of Sloan's liniment ready and waiting on the medicine shelf for the first twinge of pain. Now, for those of you who are not ready, I have this friendly tip. Get a bottle of Sloan's at your favorite drugstore as soon as possible. Muscular aches and pains, as you know only too well, strike suddenly, without warning. Overexertion on your job, a slight accident, or overexposure to blustery wind and rain often results in stiff, sore muscles that make your life miserable. When you have a bottle of dependable Sloan's liniment handy, though, you can expect quick and comforting relief in just about a jiffy. Sloan's, you know, is the pat-on liniment. That's all you do, just pat it on the sore place. And like a heat treatment, Sloan's goes right to work, helping to loosen and relax those tight muscles. So make sure you have a bottle of Sloan's liniment on your medicine shelf at all times. Well, Colonel Schwarzkopf, I've finished with my predictions. What did Lieutenant Stanley find in that trailer camp?
I was just going to ask that question of Chief Sims myself, Frank. Chief Sims, did Lieutenant Stanley and Detective McGarrity go to the trailer camp at Alexandria, Virginia?
Yes, Colonel Schwarzkopf. But the basket weaver, Buchanan, whom they were looking for, had left. The other campers told the investigators Buchanan had set off with his trailer for the Cumberland Gap. The Virginia police thereupon got in touch with Middlesboro's captain of police, Barton.
Wallace, Deputy King.
Yes, Captain Barton?
Go on, me, Captain Barton. Yes, here's a flash from the Virginia police. They want us to pick up Clyde Buchanan for questioning. The trailer's parked at the trailer camp just outside of Middlesbrough here.
Well, I've known Clyde Buchanan all my life, Captain Barton. Why do you suppose the Virginia police want Buchanan for questions?
Yeah, I'm puzzled. Clyde Buchanan's a fine man. But we'd better go out to the trailer camp and see him. Yeah, that's Buchanan's trailer right at the end of this lane.
Look, Captain Barton. Buchanan's coming out to meet us.
Hello, Sheriff Wallace.
Captain Barton?
Lieutenant.
What brings you gents out here? Well, Clyde, to tell you the truth, we've come to see you. Me? What for?
Well, the Virginia police seem to think you've had something to do with some robberies.
You don't mean you're arresting me? That's the most... There's some kind of mistake here. All right, I'll go with you and straighten it out. Just wait till I get a hat and coat. Just a minute, Clyde. You got a gun on you? I always carry a gun. You know that. Driving nights and stopping in lonely places sometimes like I do.
Well, you'd better give us the gun, Buchanan.
Sure.
I'll give you the gun, all right. You shot the sheriff. Stop! Halt, Buchanan! You stop, Captain. Where you are. I'm shooting you too, Deputy. Not if I get you first.
You're crazy trying to shoot it out with me, Deputy. I shot the gun right out of your hand. Now I'm finishing the job.
Oh, no. Your gun's empty.
The sheriff's safe.
Hold him! Get Buchanan! There he goes! Into those cowboys! Right to the fire! Go out! You're Sheriff Wallace, you're out! Hey, come back here, Sheriff!
Who's in charge here?
I am. I'm County Attorney Fred Miller. And I'm Detective McGarrity from Fairfax County, Virginia. We're the ones who sent you the call that we wanted Buchanan for questioning.
I know. Now we want him for murder.
Yes, so I've heard.
If it's burglary evidence you're looking for, you'll find plenty in Buchanan's trailer over there. Chloroform, several different kinds of poison, and more money than a man could honestly make weaving baskets.
What about this fellow Godfrey? His action struck us as suspicious, too.
Godfrey?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Farmer Godfrey?
That's right.
Well, he's innocent, but I don't know how long he's going to be.
Now, what do you mean by that?
They tell me Godfrey's set off without authority as a one-man posse to track Buchanan down by himself. Now, if Godfrey does catch him, he'll kill him. He's cracked on the subject.
When are you starting after Buchanan?
Right away. We're giving the bloodhounds a scent now. Come on along if you like.
Oh, thanks.
Here you are, boy. Take a good smell of this.
What's that?
That's part of one of Buchanan's shirts. You take another sniff, boy. That's it.
Say, this dog don't look big enough to travel with a pack.
He's still a puppy. Never been out before, but this case will give him training.
He's a cunning little thing.
Here you are, puppy. Come on now, sniff again. That's a good little puppy. All ready, men? All right, let the hounds off the leashes.
That's funny, Miller. The hounds led us right up this mountain trail. Now they're running around in circles again.
They've lost the scent, McGarity. Buchanan knows his mountains and his dogs. He's crossed his high and dry railroad bed so the wind would carry off his scent.
Well, I be... Say, where's the little fella?
Little fella?
Yeah, the puppy.
Well, George, you're right. Where is he?
Hip up. Here, Tiny. Come on, Tiny. Go get him, boys. Go find your little pal. Here, Tiny. Come on, pup.
Look, there goes one of the hounds down that ravine.
After him, boys. Go get him.
They picked up Buchanan's trail, I guess.
They picked up something fresh, but they don't act as though they were on Buchanan's trail. Come on.
Right.
Hey, men, follow us.
Well, here's the bottom of the valley. Now, where are the hounds?
Listen. See, they found something over there in that thicket.
What's that?
Come on, there's somebody in there.
Hello? Posse! Surround that thicket!
Let's go, McGarry.
Right.
Go on your dog, mister.
All right, down, boys. Down, quiet. All right, youngster, climb down out of that tree.
Hey, this young fella's hurt. He's got a big gash on his head.
No, I'm all right now.
What happened, young fella?
I don't know. I was hunting squirrels, and all of a sudden something hit me on the head. When I came to, my rifle and squirrels were gone. There was a little dog sniffing a piece of raw meat. And then the whole pack came
A
along.
little dog? Where?
Oh, right over there where the big hounds are.
All right, go away, boys. Go away. Get away from that meat.
Dead. That poor little pup.
Yes. Buchanan must have had a vial of poison on him and poisoned this piece of squirrel meat to throw the hounds off again.
That dirty yellow skunk.
He was a good hound. He'd been killed on his first hunt. But he set us back on that killer's trail. Buchanan can't be very far away.
Say, if you fellas are a posse, I'd like to go along with you. I'd like my rifle back.
Great Scott, I'd forgotten that. Buchanan has this boy's rifle now.
Son, you better stay behind. We'll bring your rifle back for you.
And Buchanan, dead or alive. Come on, hound, sniff. Take another smell of this shirt. Good smell. That's it. Now, don't lose the scent again. All right, that's enough. Now, go find him. Go find the rat who killed your little pal. Well, that's where Buchanan went, all right, McGarity. Dogs lost the trail again at the foot of this cliff. That means that Buchanan must have climbed up the cliff.
But he never could reach the top, Miller.
No, he's most likely in that cave halfway up with a crevice above it. We'll just wait till the rest of the posse have taken their position.
Come down out of there, Buchanan. You don't, I'll go up and get you.
Who's that?
That wasn't one of our posse. It's Farmer Godfrey back of that rock.
Godfrey?
Yes. We got to stop him from committing murder. Hey, Godfrey, keep out of this.
I'll keep out of nothing. I'm going to get that killer Buchanan.
We'll have to go over there and stop him.
Yeah, but you'll expose yourself to Buchanan if you do.
If Buchanan's held his fire so far, that's a chance I'll have to take. You stay here and keep that cave covered.
Right.
You're a fool, Attorney Miller. Buchanan might have picked you off crawling over here like that. You look here, Godfrey. Buchanan's saving his fire till it means something. It's more than you've been doing.
I'll shoot it out for Buchanan any day. I'll stand in the open and let him stay in that cave and still knock the finger off his trigger when I see his gun flash. He's robbed my home twice, and he's a killer.
You'll have to have mighty good eyesight, Godfrey, to see a gun flash up in that dark cave.
I ain't fixing to stay here. I'm going up after Buchanan right now.
You move 1 foot beyond this rock, and I'll shoot you.
Why, that snake in the grass Buchanan robbed my house twice, poisoned 2 of my dogs. You shoot me if I go after him. What kind of law is that?
It's law and order, Godfrey. You can't take the law into your own hands. That's my duty.
Well, what are you planning to do?
I'm going to make a dash for that boulder up ahead. I'm going up after Buchanan myself.
Well, all right. I'll hold my fire. But if Buchanan gets you, I won't hold off any longer.
All right, that's a promise, Godfrey. Wish me luck. Garrity, what are you doing here? I thought I told you to stay back.
I made a dash for this rock just the same as you did, Miller.
We'll be mighty lucky if he doesn't get one of us. Buchanan, we know you're up in that cave. You'd better surrender, Buchanan.
Buchanan isn't biting.
I'll try once more. Come down, Buchanan, or we're coming up for you.
That got a response all right. That bullet came within a split inch of my ear.
Well, that was a warning that Buchanan doesn't intend to be taken alive.
Look, there he goes, creeping out of the cave.
Making for the crevice above, we'll have a better cover. Well, it's now or never.
You've got him, Miller.
Yes,
You've got him.
Yes, he's falling, and he'll land right here at our feet.
Well, there he is. Don't look much like a killer now. That's the end of Buchanan.
And the end of the mystery of poisoned dogs and burglaries in Kentucky.
Colonel Schwarzkopf, the final revelation that widely respected Clyde Buchanan had been the secret scourge of 3 states was a shock to the countryside.
I can understand that, Chief Tim. He was a man who really led a double life.
Colonel Schwarzkopf, this may surprise you, but Sloan's liniment leads a double life, too. Men and women with tough jobs now keep a bottle of Sloan's in their lockers at plants and factories, as well as on the medicine shelves at home. You see, Sloan's is so easy to use that all you need are a few minutes at lunchtime or during a rest period. With Sloan's, there's no need for hard, painful massaging. All you have to do is tap Sloan's liniment on, and then relax for a while. And as you do, Sloan's penetrating warmth goes to work like a heat treatment. While in almost no time at all, Sloan's helps you find quick and comforting relief. Don't let the suffering caused by simple muscular aches and pain slow you down. Let Sloan's help you maintain the top speed all America is aiming for. The top speed America needs in every job, your job. Protect yourself from the stiffness and soreness that so frequently follows accident, overexertion, or overexposure to bad weather. Pick up a bottle of Sloan's liniment tomorrow on the way down to work, and keep it in your locker always. And now, Gangbusters Clues. Wanted, most dangerous and ruthless criminals at large today. Number 1.
Basil Hugh Bangard, alias the Owl, 42, 5 feet 8 inches, 156 pounds, graying chestnut hair, blue-gray eyes, distinguishing marks, hair comes to arrow point, bald left and right front. Hair comes to arrow point, bald left and right front. May wear toupee to cover it. Wrinkles across forehead. Wrinkles across forehead. Raised scar upper right chin. Raised scar upper right chin. Mole left cheek. Mole on left cheek. Eyes have owl-like appearance. Eyes have owl-like appearance. May wear glasses to cover owl-like eyes. May wear hat or toupee to cover bald spots front of head. May wear glasses to cover owl-like eyes.
Urgently wanted criminal number 2.
Roger Toohey, 44, 5 feet 5 3/4 inches, 139 pounds, graying chestnut hair, blue eyes, distinguishing marks, hawk-like nose turned to left, hawk-like nose turned to left, mole below right side of nose, mole below right side of nose, prominent lump left side of neck, prominent lump left side of neck, lower lip turns under, lower lip turns under, amputated right thumb tip, amputated, may wear gloves to cover this defect.
Urgently wanted criminal number 3.
Matthew Nelson, 40, 5 feet 10 3/4 inches, 149 pounds, chestnut hair, scar right forehead, deep set grayish blue eyes, protruding chin, repeating, scar right forehead, deep set grayish blue eyes, protruding chin.
Urgently wanted criminal number 4.
James O'Connor, 36, 5 feet 5 3/4 inches, 157 pounds, dark wavy hair, yellow-gray eyes, gunshot wound just above left elbow, left arm stiffened, repeating, left arm stiffened from effects of gunshot wound above elbow.
Urgently wanted criminal number 5.
William Stewart, 45, 6 feet 1/2 inch, 179 pounds, dark graying hair, long straight nose, greenish gray eyes, round receding chin, has upper plate of false teeth, lower bridge of false teeth, mole upper left part of head, star tip left index finger, repeating, upper plate of false teeth, lower bridge of false teeth, mole upper left part of head, star tip left index finger.
Urgently wanted criminal number 6.
St. Clair McInerney, 31, 5 feet 9 1/2 inches, 159 pounds, wavy brown hair, short nose, yellow slate eyes, face thick bonnet, heavy brows, scar base of left thumb, scar base of left thumb.
These subjects wanted for recent escape, Statesville Penitentiary, Joliet, Illinois. Governor, State of Illinois, has offered reward $1,000 for information leading to apprehension or delivery each these men to Statesville Penitentiary. Warning, these men reported armed and extremely dangerous. These men armed and extremely dangerous.
If you have any information concerning these clues, notify your local police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or Gangbusters at once. And now, here's what Philip H. Lord has planned for next week.
Gangbusters friends, next week for Sloan's Liniment, the startling case of the Wolverine, the slinking terror of the Northland who stole out of the giant forests to strike with snarling savagery, midnight vigil in a deserted railroad station, and the eerie voice that came over the telephone, the paper napkin that led to the lonely snowbound cabin, then the race between the thundering express train and the police on a handcar in a desperate attempt to capture the Wolverine.
That's next week's Sloan's Liniment presentation of Gangbusters.
Gangbusters is a Philip H. Lord production which has originated in New York.
Proudly we hail.
From New York City, where the American stage begins, here is another program with a cast of outstanding players. Public service time has been made available by this station for your Army and your Air Force to bring you this story. As proudly we hail Colonel Dave C. Schilling and the 31st Strategic Fighter Wing of the United States Air Force. story is entitled Fox Peter 1. It's the story of the continued pioneering of our United States Air Force. The story of the flight of a group of jet fighter planes across the Pacific Ocean. The first mass jet flight across the Pacific. Our first act curtain will rise in just a moment. But first, young man, can you qualify to wear the silver wings of a pilot in the United States Air Force and fly the speedy jet? If you've had 2 or more years of college training and are between the ages of 19 and 26 and a half and are otherwise qualified, a visit to your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station will start you on your way to your future in flight. And now your Army and your Air Force present the proudly rehailed production, Fox Peter 1. It's July 1952. On a hot summer day, if you happen to be on a boat out in the wide Pacific Ocean, somewhere west of California and east of Hawaii, you might have heard a squadron of F-84s, Thunderjet fighter bombers, flying west at 400 or 500 miles an hour. So far from the nearest land, so far from their nearest base, you should have been surprised to see them, because jet fighters don't normally have the range to fly this far out in the ocean. As a matter of fact, these were the first jet fighters ever to have been over this point in the Pacific. If you thought about it, you'd worry about their fuel supply. And if you were in the lead plane with Colonel Dave Schilling, you'd be worrying about it with him as he presses the mic button and starts talking.
Fox Peter, leader of the squadron. Give me a check.
One by one, each pilot reported in. Once again, the leader pressed the mic button.
Schilling to formation. We should reach the tankers in the next few minutes.
It was a critical point in Operation Fox Peter 1. The whole concept of moving a complete wing of relatively short-range jet fighters across the ocean depended on the ability to refuel in midair, which meant, among other things, that the huge air tankers be at the right place at the right time. The Pacific is a mighty big ocean, and a jet fighter sinks in about 5 seconds. It was an anxious time. And then...
Squadron of KV-29's almost dead ahead. Prettiest sight I ever saw.
Right. Loaded with fuel and just waiting for us. Leader of the squadron. Seal off an assigned order to refuel.
And then, if you'd been that man on the boat in the middle of the ocean, you would have seen another amazing sight. You would have rubbed your eyes and looked again to make sure you weren't seeing things. Because one by one, these seedy little Republic Thunderjets approached the big, comparatively slow-flying tankers and nuzzled up to them. They each stayed with the big plane for a short time and then moved away to be replaced by another jet. But if you'd seen that sight in the middle of the Pacific, you wouldn't have been dreaming. You wouldn't have fallen prey to your own imagination. You'd be seeing the culmination of years of work, of planning. This is the story of Fox Peter 1. That was the name of this flight. On the old phonetic alphabet, Fox stood for F, for fighter. Peter was for P, the Pacific. 1, well, that was the number. The first fighter flight across the Pacific. The story of Fox Peter 1 opens at a Strategic Air Command base somewhere in the United States. Colonel Schilling is there, a World War II fighter pilot with over 33 German planes to his credit. The flyer who's had more experience with the practical problems of mid-air refueling of jet fighters than anyone else in the Air Force. There's another officer there, Colonel Blake, a research man connected with the Air Materiel Command. And there's a Strategic Air Command general. The general is talking.
The problem is this. We want to get more range in our jet fighters so that we can take advantage of their speed without being too dependent on a number of airfields. So the little fighters have the range to go along with the bombers to protect them on long missions. Mid-air refueling seems to be one answer.
Colonel Schilling here has been taking jet fighters on long trips using the probe and drogue method of in-flight refueling. I'm not sure that's the best method we can get. How about you, Dave? You've been using it.
Well, that's the best we've got so far. Frankly, gentlemen, we don't think it's the answer. So let's go on from there.
Well, longer range means either the ability to carry more fuel or some way of getting additional fuel. We put on additional tanks, but they don't give the answer. The plane gets heavier. It takes more power to get off the ground. It means longer runways. They're going in a vicious cycle. As we improve the engines for more speed, they're using more fuel. Improving the efficiency of the engines isn't the answer either.
We're not going to make enough of an improvement to add to the range tremendously. Not in a hurry, that is.
So we get back to flight refueling. Now, the method we've used is an aerial tanker dangling a flexible hose with a large funnel at the end of it. Refueling is accomplished by flying a projection of the jet into the funnel, sort of like threading a needle.
Boeing Aircraft has developed a method. They call it the flying boom.
Yes, a rigid telescoping pipe extending from the tail of the tanker. They've used it for bombers. I don't know whether it could be worked out for fighter planes.
The question is, if it could be used, would it work? It's a very complicated problem. A system like that is easier to work out for bombers. They're slower, and besides, on a bomber, there's room to work out the necessary changes. But space is so tight in a fighter.
I didn't say it was simple. It's a problem. I'm putting you two men on it.
So that's the way it is, Mac. The old man told Dave Schilling and me to get to work on it. Boeing's been extremely cooperative. How far along are you on it here?
Now, look, Colonel, you know I'd break my neck for you and the General. But have you any idea of the scope of the problem you've handed me?
Sure I have. Just work out a way to modify your Thunderjet so it can be refueled in midair by the Boeing flying boom.
That's all. Just as simple as that. All I've got to do is place a fuel receptacle somewhere on the F-84 that'll fit the end of a flying boom.
It'd be nice if it were that easy, wouldn't it?
If it were that easy, you wouldn't bring it to me. You never give me the easy one.
Well, just to make your problem a little tougher, Mac. It has to be something that doesn't change your manufacturing process too radically. Because, you see, Mac, we don't want you to lose any production. We need jet fighters too badly.
I beat you to that one, Colonel. Would you like to see a little mock-up of where we begin?
Bill, bring that model over here, will you?
Yeah, Mac.
Now, see, we put this refueling receptacle on the leading edge of the wing. It's got to offer no more resistance to the air than the wing without it. And it has to be able to accept the end of the flying boom.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I built this model. Do you think you could explain this in a way that I could understand?
Well, sure, Bill. It is simple. Look, you see, the other end of this flying boom is attached to a tanker, a KB-29 or a KC-97. They don't fly very fast, not compared to our Thunderjets.
But aren't there flaps and things that can slow down a jet?
Well, yes, but we have to keep going at 200 miles an hour or so, or the craft isn't maneuverable. It gets mushy, as the pilots say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've got to fill 5 tanks with fuel via that little pipe and this little gadget we're going to put on the wing. Bill, do you know how long it takes to put 10 gallons of gas in your car?
Oh, a couple of minutes?
No, not that long. It just seems that way to you when you're impatient. But in a couple of minutes, we've got to put maybe 1,000 gallons of fuel into a main tank and 4 auxiliary tanks. It's got to get in there under high pressure, several hundred gallons a minute. And at the same time, it can't interfere with the fuel being pumped from the tanks into the jet engine. I'm running some tests right now, ground runs, you might say. Would you like to see?
I certainly would. And that's what I came along for, to see how far along you were.
Now, as you can see, this is the Thunderjet's fuel system without the plane. But this is just the way it would be set up if the airplane were built around it. Now, each tank has a gauge we can see from here. And there are gauges on the leads to the various tanks to show us the rate of flow.
Looks like something Rube Goldberg invented to drive a man crazy.
No, it's just something Colonel Blake here thought up to drive me crazy. Actually, it's not as complicated as it looks in class. Yeah, I'll show you. Okay, Bob. Let her go.
There's one filled up. And another.
Well, that's the way it goes, Colonel. We're on our way.
It looks to me as though you've got it licked, Mac. You've got the bases. Now you have to take out the bugs.
And so the flying boom system of refueling jet fighters in midair goes from the green in the eye stage to the blueprint stage. And one day, a 4-engine B-29, transformed into a tanker, takes off from a long runway and lumbers into the air with its load of jet fuel and a strange appendage attached to its tail section.
I still don't see how this can work. Do you mean you have that flying boom extending beyond the plane and the jet's supposed to fly right into it?
Well, you'll see in a few minutes, I hope. The jet's supposed to come up behind us, a little below, sort of hover there at about the same speed we're going. I fly the boom right into the jet. Oh, excuse me, here comes the jet. I'd better tell the captain. The rear compartment of the captain's jet approaching from the rear on schedule.
Aren't you a little nervous about this, Mac?
Not very. Now, look, the weather's perfect. We're bowling along here like a baby carriage. That jet? Well, Dave Schilling's flying here, and Colonel Schilling's about as good a pilot as there is in the Air Force.
Here he comes. Hey, he gets pretty close, doesn't he?
His throttle's way back now. Got his flaps down.
T-18 from 058. Ready for contact.
058 from T-18. Roger. Move into position. Bring her up 5 and right about 2. Hold her. Contact. Maximum flow established. The boom moved down so that it was level with the nearby wing of the Thunderjet, extending the pipe farther and farther back until it touched the receptacle on the plane's wing and then entered it. A light glowed on the boom tender's panel, and a gauge showed pressure and the number of pounds delivered. Then back in the little Thunderjet.
T-18 from 058. Ready for contact.
058, T-18, roger. Move into position. Bring her up 5 and right about 2. Hold her. Contact. Maximum flow established.
Well, there we go. Smooth as silk. And fast as a jet. No more of a jar when we connected than when a good engineer couples a pair of Pullman cars. I just line up and keep steady. When I'm in line with the number 3 engine, I'm in the right place. Wonder how long it'll take.
T-18 to 058, 4,400 pounds of fuel delivered. Pressure disconnect.
058 T-18, roger. Disconnect. That was smooth.
T-18 to 058, roger. Thanks.
058 to T-18. I'll be back if I get thirsty. Lieutenant Curtis should be along to fill his aircraft shortly.
That was one of the first in-flight refuelings of a jet plane by the flying boom method. Later, it was to become automatic. It was to be repeated over and over again until it was routine. First single aircraft, then by 2, by squadrons, until the bugs were ironed out, until all that was left was the big test, the flights across the Pacific. Fox, Peter 1. You are listening to the proudly we hail production Fox Peter 1. We'll return in just a moment for the second act. But first, if you're a single young man interested in aviation, there's no better way to learn while you earn than as an aviation cadet. Win your wings as a crew member of an Air Force plane. You'll graduate from your aviation cadet training as a commissioned officer. You'll be rated a pilot or an aircraft observer. If you become an aircraft observer, you'll be a specialist in a specific job: bombardier, navigator, electronics officer, or aircraft performance engineer. Enlist today as an aviation cadet at your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station. You are listening to Proudly We Hail, and now we present the second act of Fox Peter 1. A lot of work had gone into proving the practicability of refueling jets in midair. And then there was more work getting the planes into production. The F-84 Thunderjet, modified for in-flight refueling, became the F-84G. They came off the assembly lines, the new G models, until they had replaced many of the older models. First a flight, then a squadron, then a wing. And now we're back at a Strategic Air Command base where we started, with Colonel Blake, Colonel Schilling, and the General.
We've tested the in-flight refueling of the Thunderjet. Lieutenant Hodges stayed aloft for more than 12 hours for one test. Captain Wayne and Captain Flynn flew from Virginia to practice bomb a target in California and returned non-stop to their base in Virginia. Captain Moore flew a Thunderjet from Florida to California and back, non-stop between breakfast and dinner. So there we are.
Well, sir, what do we do now?
I think we're about ready for a big test.
Well, it's my belief that with advanced planning, we can fly these little jets just about anywhere in the world.
We have to do it without that kind of advanced planning. The kind of rush we'd have if we found we suddenly needed a number of jet fighters at a place where we have none.
Well, just tell me what you want to do, and I'll get to work on the plans.
I want you to consider the feasibility of moving Colonel Schilling's strategic fighter wing from its present base to Japan.
Japan? Why, that's 10,000 miles away.
Yes. The Earth is about 25,000 miles around at its widest point. Well, no point on Earth can be more than 12,500 miles from any other. That's about as far as a plane should...
Japan is nearly that far.
Most of the surface of the globe is covered with water.
I don't see why it shouldn't be possible. We'll get to work on it right away, General.
Time went by after that discussion, but wheels were turning. Colonel Schilling went back to the 31st Strategic Fighter Wing at Turner Air Force Base near Albany, Georgia, and then to Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama for classroom work. One day he was taking a shower, thinking about his studies, when he heard someone calling him.
Colonel, sir.
Yeah?
Turner Air Force Base is calling. Colonel Dunham, it's urgent.
Oh, okay. Tell him I'll be with him in a minute. Have him hang on a second. Hello, Dunham. What's up?
Better hop in the saddle, Chief, and hustle back home right away. We're going places.
What now?
Right now, pronto.
Where are we going?
Would you like to know? I'm not saying.
All right, I gotta go. But if this is one of your crazy jokes, you'll sweat for it. By the time Colonel Schilling got back to Turner Air Force Base, he had a chance to figure out what the rush was for. So he wasn't too surprised to find the base a turmoil of activity when he arrived. There were lots of preparations to be made and very little time for it. Then it came, H hour. And standing on the runway to watch the Thunderjet wing take off were the General and Colonel Blake saying goodbye to Colonel Schilling.
It's your show now, Dave. This is going to be quite the flight.
Yes, I think it is, too.
You've got the planes to do it, and the system has worked out as well as we'll ever get it.
Just do the job you usually do, Dave.
I'll give her a go.
Good luck, and happy landings. We'll be sweating it out until you get there.
Happy landing.
Thank you. The trip across from Georgia to California was the first leg of the flight and was regarded as a practice hop, and lessons were learned from it. Due to a combination of circumstances, 3 of the jets didn't get enough fuel in their refueling to enable them to make it to California without cutting their fuel reserve margin down below the level of safety. Wisely, they decided to set down at a base in Arizona to refuel. At Travis Air Force Base, some 60 miles north of San Francisco, the 31st Fighter Escort Wing made ready for the next jump, the long overwater hop to Hawaii, some 2,400 miles away. 3 RB-36s were diverted from their regular missions and sent flying ahead as weather stations. General Curtis LeMay, the Strategic Air Command's leader, flew in from Omaha to wish the 31st Godspeed and happy landing. General Carmichael's weather planes gave the go-ahead signal, and the Thunderjets were ready to take off. Colonel Schilling called his group together and gave them a little talk.
There are a lot of people more used to making speeches than I am, and they can make them better, too. I just want to say thanks to all of you of the 31st who have performed above and beyond the call of duty. We had problems on our first leg from Turner to Travis, but we have the answers now. We're going to take off in a couple of minutes for Hickam Air Force Base, Honolulu, territory of Hawaii. At the appointed spot, we'll come across a fleet of KB-29 tankers waiting for us, waiting to refuel us as we fly. And farther on, and closer to Hawaii, there'll be more KB-29 standing by at selected points in case any of us start to run dry. We're going where no jets have ever flown before. First stop, Hawaii. Let's go.
The trip from Travis Air Force Base in California to Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii was the longest overwater jump yet attempted by jets, some 2,400 miles. The 58 Thunderjets of the 31st cruised along at a leisurely 400 miles an hour plus, taking time out to slow down and refuel at the appointed place before their tanks ran dry. Colonel Schilling developed a little trouble with his plane, either because of a high-altitude boil-off or because in the refueling he had not received as much fuel as he needed.
he saw that he wasn't going to have enough fuel to make it to Hawaii. He checked with the others in his flight and found 2 more planes that could use more fuel. He pressed his mic button and told the rest of the squadron,
Fox Peter, leader to formation. I'll have to tap the standby tankers.
Wingman the leader. Okay, Chief. I can use a few pounds myself. Let's go.
Leader to formation. Anyone else? Okay, one more. Prepare for descent to refueling altitude.
Colonel Schilling and the 2 other Thunderjets approached the standby tankers in what was now a familiar maneuver. The speedy little jets were refueled and on their way. The 31st Strategic Fighter Wing went on its unprecedented flight. First it was Turner in Georgia to Traviston, California, to Hickam in Hawaii. The rest of the way was island hopping. Islands that are names that ring in our memories. Midway, Wake, Eniwetok, Guam, Iwo Jima, and Japan. At Eniwetok, they had a peculiar problem. As Colonel Schilling said,
the major worry facing us is a dangerously short runway here. There was no sweat landing, but taking off poses a different problem.
The answer to the takeoff problem at Eniwetok was JATO, Jet-Assisted Takeoff Units, a pressurized, rocket-like propellant in steel bottles, slung in pairs under the fuselage of the Thunderjet. They can give an extra 2,000 pounds of thrust. That's an additional 36% of the Thunderjet's power for a brief time. And then the empty metal containers may be jettisoned. Let's go along with Colonel Schilling as he takes off from Eniwetok.
Eniwetok isn't very big, and the runway is necessarily short. But the air is bright and clear, and the sun is so bright that it almost hurts. I'm sweating it out, waiting to lead the takeoffs while the ground crews are connecting and arming the JATO units. The longer I look at that runway, the shorter it gets. It doesn't seem to stretch much farther than a long hallway. Well, finally I get the all clear signal. I start down the runway, and it really does get shorter in a hurry. I wait until the proper moment, touch the firing switch in the control panel. Nothing. I remembered a warning that if it didn't start at once, to keep pushing the button to be sure to make contact. So I push it, and I wiggle it, still nothing. The runway was getting shorter. I couldn't stop now. I could drop the 2 auxiliary tanks and lighten the load enough to take off. But the plane was beginning to feel lighter. I gave it full throttle, and the end of the runway came closer. And then I was airborne. In a few seconds, I was off the ground and beginning to gain altitude. And I really sweated on that one. Then I circled to watch the others take off. The other 57 planes of the wing took off that way safely. For Iwo Jima, a tiny island. And I was swearing to myself, cussing out the man who hadn't armed the JATO unit properly in my plane, when I reached down for the lever that would drop my 2 useless and unused JATO bottles. And then I had no one to cuss out but myself. Reaching for the release unit, I found the ready switch. It was still in an off position. I'd warned the other 57 pilots to be sure to turn it to on before they took off, but I hadn't done it myself. Then Colonel Dunham, my wingman, called me.
Fox Peter, leader, this is Wingman. I just want to say, we all gained a lot of confidence seeing you take off without JATO. You're worrying a little about the takeoff. Then when we saw you make it safely without using the extra thrust, well, made us all feel sure.
Fox Peter, leader to wingman, thanks for the posies, but they're not for me. If you think I took off that way on purpose, you're crazy. I hadn't turned on the ready switch. And now Iwo Jima, and our new base at Misawa, Japan.
But that wasn't to be. The weather was too bad, and the base at Misawa on northern Honshu Island was socked in. The flight was told to put in at Yokota, not too far from Tokyo. On hand to greet the 31st Wing were General Otto P. Whalen, Commanding General of the Far East Air Force, and Brigadier General Delmar T. Spivey, Commanding General of the Japan Air Defense Force. As General Whalen said, the flight of the 31st Wing across the Pacific, 10,670 miles in less than 29 hours flying time, showed that small, fast aircraft can be moved to any part of the world at the drop of a hat. Colonel Schilling, who was tapped to lead the successful flight, had some ideas on what Fox Peter 1 meant.
The reporters asked me why we chose this way of moving. They thought it would have been simpler to move the planes by aircraft carrier. But the way things are in the world today, there's no substitute for speed of movement, especially when we're guarding a perimeter that encompasses the entire world. And as important as the speed, our aircraft arrived at the destination in combat condition. There was no delay for pickling the aircraft, no salt in the hydraulics, no moisture in the electrical system. When we got to Japan, we were ready. Our 58 Thunder jets reported into General Wayland. The next day he put us to work. I was chosen as the leader, and it's an honor I always treasure. But, well, I was just a fellow out in front of 57 great guys flying the same type of plane. The whole job was one of cooperation, teamwork. Cooperation between Boeing and Republic Aircraft and the Air Force to start with. Cooperation by maintenance men, the meteorologists, the planners, the refueling squadrons, by everyone. And with that kind of support, we couldn't fail. With that kind of spirit, the United States will go a long, long way in the aerial pioneering business. And believe me, the United States Air Force has that kind of spirit. Proudly we hail Colonel Dave Schilling and the 31st Strategic Fighter Wing of the Strategic Air Command for Fox Theater 1, the first mass flight of jet fighters across the Pacific Ocean. Young man, if you've had 2 years of college, are single and otherwise qualified, there's a future for you as an aviation cadet pilot in the United States Air Force. You'll receive 18 months of the world's finest flight training, fly the latest jets easily and safely, train for leadership, and graduate as an Air Force lieutenant with earnings of more than $5,000 a year. Jets are easy to fly when you learn the aviation cadet way. Visit your nearest recruiting station or Air Force base today and find out your chances for making the grade. This has been another program on Proudly We Hail, presented transcribed in cooperation with this station. Proudly We Hail is produced by the Recruiting Publicity Center for the United States Army and United States Air Force Recruiting Service. This is Kenneth Banghart speaking, and inviting you to tune in the same station next week for another interesting story on Proudly We Hail.
Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Now let's drop in for our weekly visit to Sherlock Holmes' friend and ours, Dr. Watson. Well, Dr. Watson, how are you this evening?
Never better, Mr. Bell, thank you. And you?
Fine, thanks. I see. You've kept your promise to open your dispatch box and bring out your files in connection with the adventure of the Carpathian Horror.
Indeed I have, Mr. Bell, just as I promised. And a most macabre adventure it was, too.
I'm eager to hear it.
So you shall, Mr. Bell, so you shall. But first, am I correct in deducing that you'd like to have a word with our listeners?
A most accurate deduction, Dr. Watson. Men, if you want your hair to look handsomely groomed from morning until night, use Kreml Hair Tonic. Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This wonderful, natural-looking hairdressing has just enough light oil to keep hair perfectly groomed with an attractive, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never gives hair that offensive, cheap, greasy look. Kreml always looks and feels so clean on both hair and scalp. Try it, men. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, what about the adventure of the Carpathian Horror?
It all began with this very letter which I have here in my hand, Mr. Bell. A letter from a most prosaic firm of solicitors. Holmes and I were at breakfast one spring morning in June 902, shortly after the end of the South African War. Holmes had been bored and restless since the conclusion of our last case, and this was the first time that I'd heard him laugh for days.
I must say, Watson, that the Morning Post has brought at least one unusual communication. For a mixture of the modern and the medieval, of the practical and the wildly fanciful, this letter is really the limit.
Oh? Why, Holmes?
Listen. 24 Gray's Inn, London, June the 4th. Re-vampires.
Re-what?
Re-vampires. The legal mind is always precise, no matter how odd the subject. The letter goes on as follows. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, sir, our client, Count Paul Romany of Grozny in Carpathia, whose trustees we are, has made inquiry from us in a communication of even date concerning vampires and demoniac possession. As our firm specializes entirely in trusteeships and chancery work, the matter hardly comes within our purview, and we trust that you will be able to take the matter in hand. We hope you will call upon us at your earliest convenience with a view toward undertaking the case. Please ask for our Mr. Atterbury. We remain, sir, faithfully yours, Wilkinson, Entwistle, and Dodd.
God, Holmes, that's the weirdest farrago of legal jargon and sheer nonsense that I've ever heard.
I wonder, Watson. The mention of Carpathia is most significant.
Significant of what?
For one thing, that remote and mountainous section of southeastern Europe has been the stronghold for centuries of all the legends of vampirism.
Oh, rubbish.
Oh, come, Watson. Where's your spirit of adventure? After weeks of lying in the doldrums, here's a fresh breeze from the unexpected environs of Gray's Inn. Come on, it's a beautiful morning for a walk.
Where to?
Wilkinson, Entwistle, and Dodd. And then, I hope, Carpathia.
Really, Holmes, of all the forsaken spots that I've ever seen, this is the worst. Not a light in sight, not a sign of human habitation. You've dragged me 2/3 of the way across Europe on what will unquestionably prove a wild goose chase.
At least we have our fishing rods with us, my dear fellow, and we can always console ourselves with the promise of some of the best trout streams to be found anywhere. And you must admit that this mountainous Carpathian country offers some superb scenery.
I might admit it if I could see it, as it's black as the ace of spades, to coin a phrase.
Ah, there we are. Here, look out of the window on this side. There are the lights of the castle.
Cheerful-looking place, I must say. When did that fellow Atterbury say that it had been built?
The first Count Romany built it in 1410.
1410? That's given it almost 500 years in which to disintegrate. Gloomy pile of stone, if ever I saw one. Look at all those turrets, battlements. Probably damper inside than out.
Well, we'll soon see.
Careful with that luggage, driver, careful.
Here you are, my man.
Slowly follow that driver. You'd think the devil was after him the way he drove off.
He shut up the moment he heard our destination. Evidently the Count's local reputation is not an enviable one.
I can't say that we're getting a very warm reception. They must have heard us, driver. Well, here's the door, but I can't see any sign of a bell.
And they seem a trifle short of modern conveniences. Let's try the knocker.
Oh, I really think this is perfectly outrageous, Holmes. Why the devil does...
It's the name.
What'd you say?
It's the name.
Oh, foreign, Holmes.
Do you speak English?
What you want? Nobody can come in. Count Romany see nobody.
Count Romany is expecting us. Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
You got letter?
Yes. Here.
Come.
What did I tell you, Holmes? Look at these walls. Simply oozing dampness.
You, wait here.
There, Watson. That's better, isn't it? That fire will take the chill out of your bones.
I need something to counteract the effect of all those family portraits. Rum-looking lot, aren't they?
A remarkably interesting collection. Curious how the family likeness remains unmistakable through so many generations.
Well, judging from the looks of that fellow in the wig, cirrhosis of the liver must have been another of the family's inheritances. Hard-drinking crew, probably.
Careful, Mr. Holmes. I'm Count Romani. I can't tell you how glad I am to see you.
Thank you, Count Romani. This is my colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
Dr. Watson, it was good of you to come so far. Something to drink, gentlemen?
A little something very well, thank you.
Good. I don't know just how much my solicitors in London may have told you, Mr. Holmes.
Very little, Count Romani. So little, in fact, that I must confess my surprise at your perfect command of our language.
Oh, well, my father had me educated in England.
Very sound, sir. Couldn't do better.
Sit down, gentlemen. Sit down. I hardly know where to begin my story. The whole thing so horrible.
Perhaps it'll make it a bit easier for you if I tell you that Mr. Atterbury showed me your letters to him.
Then you know that I believe I'm going mad. Or worse.
Oh, Dr. Watson will bear me out, Count Romani, when I tell you that people who really are on the verge of insanity never think it of themselves.
Oh, no, that's quite so, quite so.
I wish I could share that belief. But you see these portraits of my family. There have been strange legends coming down through the years of occasional weird and nameless horrors that have taken possession of each fourth generation. The fourth Romani died mad. The eighth lived out his life in a locked and guarded tower of the castle. And I am the 12th Romani.
All old families have legends. That's hardly a basis for any fear.
I quite agree with you. But some months ago, my father died, and I became the 12th Count. A few weeks later, I retired to bed one evening after reading quietly here in the library, only to undergo a dream of such vividness that I shall never forget it. I dreamt of brightly colored corridors, their length stretching endlessly into the distance, their walls echoing with strange, unworldly music. In my dream, I hurried from empty room to empty room, through floods of brilliant, varicolored light. I saw no people, no living thing, only the rooms of ruby and gold and jet and sapphire and emerald. At times, the music seemed to be far away, thin and cold, as though coming from the depths of interstellar space. And then again, it would seem so near that I was certain I would find its source in the next room that I entered, in my endless search for I knew not what. At last, after eons of time, I awoke to find myself in my own bedroom.
Oh, but my dear fellow, a vivid dream's nothing unusual.
It wasn't a dream, Doctor. It was what I saw upon awaking in my room. My door was still locked, but the rug bore the imprint of wet and naked feet. And across the foot of my bed there lay, still dripping, some strands of weed from the moat of the castle.
Surely there's a natural explanation for that.
Yes, my boy. Are you by any chance subject to walking in your sleep?
No, Dr. Watson. And even if I were, I could not have walked through a locked and bolted door.
And the windows?
The windows of my room give on a wall of the castle that drops sheer for 60 feet. Nothing but a fly could go up or down. Well, Mr. Holmes, the next morning, a dog belonging to one of the local woodcutters was found dead in the castle moat, and with no blood left in his body.
And the next time, Count Romani, I'm certain there must have been repetitions to bring you to your present fear.
The next dream came a few weeks later. Again, I saw the brilliantly colored rooms. Again, I heard the unearthly music.
And when you awoke?
I was in my bed. And for a moment, I thought that nothing was wrong. Then, when I turned up the lamp, I saw streaks of gray across my bedspread and grayish footprints upon the rug.
Dust?
Dust, Mr. Holmes. And a moment later, I received horrible confirmation of its source. For lying beside me on the pillow was the heavy, ancient, wrought-iron key which unlocks the burial vaults of the Romani.
Extraordinary thing.
Since your action in sending for me shows that you don't lack for moral courage, Count Romani, I'm certain that you paid an immediate visit to your family vaults.
Quite right, Mr. Holmes, quite right. In the company of my cousin Peter and several of the servants, and with torches to light our way, we visited the subterranean vault which is cut into the mountainside under the castle.
And you found?
We found that the coffins of the 4th and 8th Count Romani had been opened, their lids shoved aside, and the bones of my ancestors tumbled out upon the stone. Lord.
Here, my boy. Here. Drink this. You'll feel better.
Thank you, Doctor. Well, now you understand, Mr. Holmes, why I sent for you.
I do indeed.
I consulted doctors. They gave me pills to make me sleep when sleep was the one thing I dreaded. The local priest spoke learnedly of exorcism, its possession by the devils, but he could not put an end to my dreams. The servants have run away in superstitious fear, all except old Anton, who admitted you. The peasants flee at the sight of me. Only my cousin Peter Hallish, who has stayed bravely and loyally at my side, still remains with me. Mr. Holmes, am I mad? Tell me, am I mad, or am I cursed by some fearful family taint?
All that I can tell you at the moment, Count Romagny, is that the priest was not mistaken when he said the devil has been at work here.
I must apologize, gentlemen, for our limited cuisine. But with all of the staff gone except old Anton, our meals are rather scratchy affairs.
Oh, my dear Count Romagny, your wine cellar more than makes up for it.
You know, if you would take my prescription, Paul, and get out on a horse every day for a few hours of hunting, you would have a better appetite.
My cousin Peter is quite a materialist, gentleman. He believes that all the evils of the flesh and the spirit can be cured by enough exercise.
And I will wager that Dr. Watson agrees with me, eh? And Doctor?
Well, there's a good deal to be said for your theory, Mr. Hallish. Mens sana in corpore sano, you know.
Your cousin is, of course, familiar with the events you described to us earlier, Count Romagny.
Of course, Mr. Holmes. I've no secrets from good old Peter here.
And what is your opinion of these strange events, Mr. Hallish?
Too much reading, too much thinking, too much brooding about the sins of our ancestors. I only hope that you and Dr. Watson can persuade Paul that all these dreams of his are just a lot of nonsense.
Well, I hope so, too, I assure you. And now, gentlemen, I imagine you're ready to retire. You've had a long and wearying trip. I'll ring for Anton.
Should there be a recurrence of your dreams, Count Romagny, please call me the instant you awaken.
Well, damp walls or no damp walls, I shall have no trouble sleeping tonight.
I'm afraid you will, Watson.
Huh?
I intend that one of us shall keep the Count's door under observation all night.
For heaven's sake, why? There's no doubt in your mind the poor chap is definitely unbalanced, is there?
Is that your opinion?
Certainly. Curious cake of delusions I overheard. Poor chap absolutely certifiable.
Nevertheless, Watson, we shall keep watch. I'll take the first, and I shall call you at midnight. What's the matter? Watson, wake up.
What's up?
I thought you were on watch.
Oh, I must have dropped off. I can't understand.
Let me wait. What is it?
The Count. Come quick.
Look, Mr. Holmes, my cousin, dead in his bed.
Good heavens, Holmes. There's blood smeared all over his hands and on the bedclothes.
But no sign of a wound.
Just a minute. I can feel his pulse. He's only fainted.
Now, what happened?
I heard him cry out. Ran down to his room. The door was half open and Paul was lying across the bed. Just as you see him now.
It is the curse of the Romagny.
Anton, stop that nonsense.
No nonsense. Priests say my master possessed by evil spirit.
What's that? Sounds like someone riding hard.
Coming this way. I will go to the door.
You were right, Holmes. I can't find any sign of a wound on his body. I can't imagine where the blood came from.
I very much fear that I can.
What do you mean?
Holmes.
Count Romagny.
My dream, Holmes. My dream. I had it again tonight. Holmes. Mr. Holmes. That's the police inspector from Grozny. A young girl was murdered tonight. Oh, no. And the prints of a man's naked feet led directly here to the castle.
In just a moment, we'll find out what happens next in the strange case of Count Romagny. Men, when you buy a hair tonic, get your money's worth. enjoy the extra advantages of Kreml hair tonic. No other hair tonic keeps the hair more neatly groomed and attractive looking. But Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. You simply can't beat Kreml to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes itchy, loose dandruff and leaves the scalp feeling so alive and invigorated. No wonder Kreml is preferred among America's most successful men. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use Kreml daily for better groomed hair, a more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, what happened after Count Romagny's third and most terrible dream?
Well, Romagny was in such a state of profound shock over the horror that had taken place that I thought it best to administer a strong sedative. Leaving Anton to watch over his master, Holmes and I, with Mr. Peter Halesh to act as interpreter, drove down with the police inspector to the home of the murdered girl.
Ask the inspector to bring that lamp a little nearer, will you, Mr. Halash?
Jose Deo Lempat.
Shocking, Holmes. Simply shocking. Her injuries look as though they'd been done by a wild animal.
You're quite right, Watson.
My poor cousin.
No court could hold him legally responsible. He'd have to be put away, of course. Hello, what's all that shouting outside?
It's the peasants. The news must have spread. They're shouting, "Duicha fellow Koshtate, burn the castle. Palalo vampira. Death to the vampire. Hakasuksel. Hang him."
Well, Holmes, we'd better drive back to the castle immediately. That mob's in an angry temper. They mustn't be allowed to wreak their vengeance on that poor mad boy.
Quite right, Watson. I've seen all I wish to hear. Come, Mr. Halash, we'd better be getting back to the castle just as fast as we can.
As a medical man, Dr. Watson, do you think that there's any chance that my cousin, under proper treatment and care, might eventually be brought back to normality?
Well, I'm afraid not, Mr. Halash. In fact, these cases generally grow progressively worse. Well, here's the poor fellow's room. He's probably still asleep from the effects of the sedative that I gave him.
Ah, Anton. Is the Count still asleep?
Well, speak up, man. The dead, it's empty. He's gone.
Gone? Gone? He's gone where you never find him. My master no wait for you to lock him up like animals.
What shall we do? Where has he gone? Those peasants will be here in an hour.
Holmes, what are you looking for?
For something that should be here on the desk. Something the Count showed us last night. The key to the Romagny burial vault.
But why should he take that, Mr. Holmes?
It's gone right enough. Bring that lamp, Watson. We may yet be in time to avert the final disaster.
Careful, Doctor. Steps ahead here. The floor is very slippery.
This passageway must have been cut out of the very heart of the mountain.
It was. They're deep in the rock itself.
If all these twistings and turnings haven't confused my sense of direction, we must be almost under the castle.
That's right, Mr. Holmes. The burial vault.
Are you hurt, Watson?
My feet simply went right out from under me. Broke the lamp, I'm afraid.
I know the passageway. Not much farther to the burial chamber. We will have to go slowly, though.
Make what speed you can. I'll keep my hand on your shoulder. Watson, do the same with me. I only hope it hasn't occurred to him to lock the door of the vault after he entered it. If it did, we're beaten.
Careful now. The passage bends sharp to the right. Just a bit farther along.
Well, wouldn't it be more merciful, Holmes, to let the poor fellow take his own way out? After all, the best we can save him for is a living death in a madhouse.
Ah, there's a glimmer of light just ahead.
The door to the vault. It's ajar.
He must have a lamp inside.
Let me go first.
It's so faint, I can't see much. What are all those big, bulky shapes?
The stone coffins of our ancestors.
There's something moving over there in the shadow behind that stone pillar.
Count, he's got a knife.
Don't go, Robin.
Be careful, Holmes. He's mad.
Let me go. Let me finish it. Oh, you want to stop?
Drop that knife.
No.
Give me a hand here, Watson.
I've got it. You're wounded.
Oh, it's nothing. Just a scratch on my hand.
Why did you have to interfere? I'd be better off dead.
Come, Paul. You mustn't talk like that.
Take the lamp, Mr. Halash, and lead the way. I want to get your cousin back up to the castle at once.
against my rule to take a drink before breakfast, but this morning I'll break that rule. Thank you, Anton.
Sit here, Count Romany. And you, Mr. Halash, over there. Anton, lock that door and remain in case I should need you.
Oh, what is the use of prolonging the agony, Mr. Holmes? If you'd let me finish things down there...
We haven't much time left, Count Romany. The peasants from the village may be here at any moment.
Well, then turn me over to them and let them do what they want.
You know we would never do that, Paul. We will protect you no matter what happens, and no matter what you may have done. After all, you weren't responsible for your actions.
I'm afraid I must correct you there, Mr. Halash. Count Romany is and has been fully as responsible for everything he has done as any other sane person.
What sort of riddle are you asking us, Holmes? Are you attempting to deny Count Romany's dreams, the episode of the dog, the burial vault, and the horrible death of that girl?
I'm not offering a riddle, Watson, but its solution. Your dreams, Count Romany, had one feature which immediately led me to suspect their unnatural origin. You spoke of brilliant colors, of unearthly music, of a distorted sense of space and time. All characteristics of the dreams, or more properly, visions induced by the drug cannabis indica, more commonly known as hashish.
Good heavens.
And since you showed none of the signs of the habitual drug taker, it was at once obvious to me that your dreams were being induced by someone else. Someone who administered the drug to you in your food or wine on those occasions when they desired you to have one of your hallucinations.
But last night, that girl, the blood...
The blood stains were the final confirmation, if I needed any, that you had not committed the crime. The real killer slipped badly there. It did not occur to him when smearing the blood upon you and the bedclothes that during a 4-mile walk from where that poor girl was killed, the blood would have dried upon you and not come off upon the bedclothes. Peter Halash, have you ever seen an execution in this country?
Why do you address me? What have I to do with all this?
Who but you would inherit the Romany title and estates?
No, no!
In the early hours of dawn, the prisoner is led out, his hands tied behind him, the priest walking in front and the jailers on each side.
Mr. Holmes!
He's led to the stained wooden block in the center of the prison courtyard, where there stands a giant figure in full evening dress, his hands covered by white gloves, his face masked. It is the executioner.
Stop it!
Then, as the wretched man is bent forward on the block, the executioner raises his gleaming axe high into the air for the final blow.
I've had enough.
Have you ever seen that, Peter Halash?
No. I'm innocent, I swear it.
Do you think a judge will believe you?
No, he did not do it. He speaks true. It was I. You shall do nothing to harm him.
Anton, this is impossible.
I do it for my master and for revenge, but you never take me alive.
What's in the window? No need to look out of the window. It's a drop of 100 feet to the courtyard below. Oh. Perhaps it was best it ended that way.
But, Holmes, I still don't understand.
It's not difficult if you study the facts.
Poor Anton. But why did you accuse me, Holmes?
Anton's fanatic plot to drive the Count to madness or suicide and to see you in his place almost succeeded, Mr. Halash. When his sleeve slipped upward and I saw the cut he'd made on his arm to supply the blood, I knew that he was the girl's murderer. But there was only one way by which I could force the truth from him. And I suspected that his devotion to you was so strong that only an accusation against you would unseal his lips.
A hatred that Anton must have nursed since childhood. I knew that my father had wronged his family, but, well, I thought that was all dead and buried history.
Not to a fanatical Carpathian peasant, Count Romany.
Mr. Holmes, you've given me back my life, my sanity.
There was never any question of your sanity, Count Romany. I saw that from the moment you first told me about the story of your dreams.
Nevertheless, I don't know how I can ever thank you properly.
If you and your cousin will introduce Watson and myself to some of your famous local fishing, I'll consider it thanks enough. And that reminds me, Watson, would you mind taking down a telegram for me? This little cut momentarily precludes the use of my right hand.
Telegram? Of course,
Oh, you'll find pen and ink on the table there.
All right. Who's it to?
Messrs. Wilkinson, Entwistle and Dodd, Gray's Inn, London, England.
How do you spell Dodd?
2 Ds, Watson. Re-vampires. Gentlemen, I take pleasure in informing you that I have brought the matter of your client, Count Paul Romany, to a satisfactory conclusion. Trusting to be favored by you with any further such commissions that may arise, I remain your obedient servant, Sherlock Holmes.
Now, friends, here especially transcribed for you is a famous celebrity, that great authority on feminine beauty, the king of glamour, John Robert Powers himself. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Joe. Well, that was quite a send-off. I thought it might be of interest to our audience tonight if I brought along one of my Powers girls. As you know, these lovely Powers girls appear on magazine covers. They star in exclusive fashion shows and very appropriately are called long-stemmed American beauties. So tonight I'd like you to meet Miss Maria Morton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
That's a very attractive spring hat you're wearing, Maria.
Like it?
Yes, very much. But how about removing it so we can see those lovely shining locks?
Why, of course. I'd love to.
Maria, your hair certainly looks like $1 million.
Thanks to you, Mr. Powers.
To me?
Yes. The first advice you gave me when I became a Powers model was to always wash my hair with Kreml shampoo. And I must say, never in my life have I used any shampoo that left my hair more radiant.
Yes, I'm completely sold on Kreml shampoo. You see, Kreml shampoo has been especially developed to glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair to reveal all its natural brilliant luster.
And don't forget to mention the built-in oil base.
And that's what helps keep the hair from becoming dry and brittle. The Powers girls tell me that after Kreml shampoo, their hair holds a wave and curl much better. In fact, I certainly recommend Kreml shampoo, not only to the Powers girls, but to every woman who wants to bring out the radiant, shining beauty in her hair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Powers, for this beauty tip. And many thanks to your beautiful model. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, next week I think I should tell you about the strange death of a young Sussex schoolmaster and how Holmes solved one of the most bizarre and most terrifying mysteries that we ever encountered. I call it The Adventure of the Lion's Mane.
Tonight's adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Sussex Vampire. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell, speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time, when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the Lion's Mane. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Crime does not pay.
You? Yourself? Oh, really now, Mr. Trident.
Why not, Mrs. Hunter? Don't you believe I'm susceptible? That I might be lonely, too?
That's hard to believe. After all, you're the man who has helped so many people to find each other. So many lonely hearts are lonely no longer because of you and what you've done.
Yes, I dare say. But that is so, my dear Mrs. Hunter, because I understand loneliness. I understand the hunger for companionship of the opposite sex, from personal experience.
Yes, I can understand that. Of course.
And then your picture fell out of the envelope that fateful morning, and something clicked. I hardly dared believe it. I wrote to you anyway. When you walked in here today, it was as if that picture had come to life. Now I know I shall never be lonely again. Do you understand this, Mrs. Hunter? Do you, Elizabeth? You must, because from now on, you and I shall never be parted. Never. If I have anything to say about it.
In the interest of good citizenship and law enforcement, we present Crime Does Not Pay, based on the famous Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer series of short subjects. In just a moment, you will hear Love Is Not All, starring Ralph Forbes. Now, Crime Does Not Pay, starring Ralph Forbes as Augustus J. Dryden in Love Is Not All. It was a rather shabby building, nothing new or modern. Just another office building with rows of doors along the slightly dank hallways. The gilt lettering tarnished and peeling on the frosted glass of the doors. This door was exactly like the others, except for its rather intriguing announcement in fading gilt. Union of Lonely Hearts, it announced in large letters. In the lower right-hand corner, quite neatly and simply, Augustus J. Dryden, counselor. Inside, the filing cabinets crowded the railing and the desk behind the railing. At that desk, blondine Margot Wells presided and investigated the contents of the day's mail. A chore at which she was ably assisted by one Muggsy Penfield and her employer, Augustus J. Dryden himself.
For your file, my dear.
Check, boss.
Oh, there is a check in this one, Gus.
Just the usual fee. Pictures, too?
No. Not very interesting.
There's a request here from Dallas, boss.
I'll handle that later.
Oh, no.
There's something amusing, my dear?
Get this. You may assure any woman who becomes at all interested in me that I am well able to take care of her now and will leave her well provided for in the future. Of course, as my wife, she would have certain responsibilities, as the enclosed photo indicates. But before very long, they will all be ready to take care of themselves. And look. Just look, count them. 9.
What?
9 of all kinds.
And the man says he's lonely.
He's probably got nobody to talk to, except the 9 flats. You want him, Margaret?
Are you kidding? What'll I do, file him in the wastebasket?
Check enclosed?
10, the registration fee.
Oh, regular procedure.
But nobody will ever marry him.
File him. Reply with Form 1. In a month, request the second fee. This is business, Marlowe.
Are we using the mails to defraud again?
Hardly, my dear. After all, we file him in good faith. His 9 offspring are hardly our responsibility.
All right, Gus, you're the boss.
St. Louis has a request, referral and some jewelry. Also, a couple of minks, one of those coat check jobs.
Margaret, we don't discuss that side of our business in the front office, remember?
Oh, sorry, boss. See you in the back later, huh? Oh, and here's Bar Harbor.
That one again.
Same character.
Burn the letter. We never received it. It's not altogether too easily traced.
Check, boss.
Not bad, this one, for her age. What's your guess, Gus?
Nice-looking woman. Only touch snapshot, too. I'd say about 40.
Hey, that's the dangerous age.
Dangerous? For whom? Any money, Margot?
Registration fee. Here's a letter.
With paper. Heavy. Engraved letterhead. Mrs. Elizabeth Hunter. 5022 East Green Street. Good address.
What'd she say, boss? What'd she say?
You may think it strange, a woman in my obvious circumstances, interested in meeting new people, lack of companionship, some well-educated gentleman. Am I well-educated, Margot?
In what way?
Well, I've been to college, upriver, that is.
You learn plenty there.
Hardly a subject for small talk.
Hey, are you thinking of fooling around with this yourself?
And why not?
Because you got more important things to do, boss.
More important than a woman of obvious means, house on Green Street? Not bad to look at? Muggsy, you never had much vision.
Yeah, I don't need vision to see trouble coming.
Nonsense. Why, with her money, we might expand this business. Margot, take a letter. My dear Mrs. Hunter, letters from ladies of your caliber are, of course, quite rare in our correspondence. We do have in our files the applications of a few, very few gentlemen of equal standing. This fact requires an abnormal procedure on the part of our agency. If you would be kind enough to call for an appointment, I shall be most honored to give you my personal attention. Yours very truly, etc., etc. Put that in the mail, Margot, my dear, and we shall see what we shall see.
Beg your pardon, Miss. Oh, yes, ma'am?
This is the office of Augustus J. Dryden.
Of the Union of Lonely Hearts? Yes, it is. May I help you?
I have an appointment. My name is Hunter, Elizabeth Hunter.
Oh, of course. One moment, please.
Yes, Margot?
Mr. Dryden, Mrs. Hunter is here. Mrs. Elizabeth Hunter.
Yes, is she? Right on time, darling. Send her in. No, wait. I'll be right out.
Oh, yes, sir. Of course. Mr. Dryden will be right with you.
Mrs. Hunter, please, won't you come in? This is a pleasure, real pleasure.
Why, yes, of course.
Oh, this way, please. Miss Wells, I am not to be disturbed.
Yes, Mr. Dryden, of course. Not to be disturbed.
Sit down, my dear Mrs. Hunter. Please, sit down.
Thank you.
No, not there. In this chair.
Oh.
Where I can see you better and you can see me.
Well, thank you again.
Cigarette?
No, thank you. Mr. Dryden, this is the first time in my life I've ever done anything like this.
Well, that hardly makes it wrong. Thousands, literally thousands of people come to me for counsel. You saw the file cabinets in the outer office. There are more in yonder closet. Surely we have the blessing of hundreds, if not thousands, of happy people in our work.
You seem to believe in your work, Mr. Dryden.
I believe in people.
And in yourself, too, perhaps, a little.
I have had great confidence in myself until a few moments ago.
I don't quite follow you, Mr. Dryden.
Until the moment I stood in that doorway and saw you.
Until you saw me.
And then I knew what I had suspected for some days. That this is now the old story of Dr. Cure Thyself.
Mr. Dryden.
Why should you be surprised? Surely you ought not to be shocked. After all, you and I are both mature. We are, shall we say, a man and a woman of the world. We know that stranger things have happened and that a man sees a woman in a setting in which he obviously does not belong and knows immediately that he has, as the youngsters say, fallen hard.
You? Yourself? Oh, really now, Mr. Dryden?
Why not, Mrs. Hunter? Don't you believe I'm susceptible?
That is hard to believe. After all, you're the man who has helped so many people find each other. So many lonely hearts are lonely no longer because of you and what you've done.
Yes, I dare say. But this is so, my dear Mrs. Hunter, because I understand loneliness. I understand the hunger for companionship of the opposite sex from a personal experience.
Yes, I can understand that, of course.
And then your picture fell out of the envelope that fateful morning. Something clicked. I hardly dared believe it. I wrote to you anyway. When you walked in here today, it was as if that picture had come to life. Now I know that I shall never be lonely again. Do you understand this, Mrs. Hunter? Do you, Elizabeth? You must. Because from now on, you and I shall never be parted. Never. If I have anything to say about it. How long is it that we've been seeing each other, Elizabeth?
A month, 6 weeks, 2 months. I don't remember. I don't much care. It's like the music in this place, like a dream. Is that why you take me here so often, Augustus?
Perhaps. So you dream, Elizabeth?
Of course. And sometimes, as now, it's difficult to tell reality from a dream.
You're quite beautiful tonight, my dear. You take me toward a dream world, too.
Do you dream, Augustus? Do you have a dream?
Do I? Yes. As a matter of fact, I believe I do.
Tell me.
It's far away now.
No, tell me.
It isn't a very large a dream.
I don't care. I want to know.
You might say it's just the expansion of the work which brought us together.
But you reach out now, all over the country. You've shown me your files.
I know. Still, this is only by letter. Think what it would mean, Elizabeth, If there were districts and even local offices of the Union of Lonely Hearts, what places where people could meet face to face almost at once. Discreet, nice things. Think of the mistakes that could be avoided.
Clubs of lonely people who wouldn't be lonely anymore.
Exactly, my dear, exactly.
Oh, it's a wonderful idea. Why don't you do it, Augustus?
If I told you why, it would bring the practical world into our dreams.
I see. You mean money? How much, Augustus? 10, 20,000?
At least 10. Perhaps as much as 20.
Would you let me be your partner? Your silent partner, Augustus? I feel your union brought us together. But I owe it to fate to help others in the same way. Please, Augustus, let me help.
Margot, I've got her. She's coming across. We're in business.
Sounds great, boss.
Well, from the looks of that new suit, Gus, it's going to be quite a business.
Yeah. My dear children, it's a cinch. A lead pipe cinch. From now on, or shortly hereafter, the fences are going to work for us instead of our working for them.
Huh?
I don't get it. Right now, we service them with a good word where the markets are for the hot merchandise. Okay. You get 5% on a sale. Where do we go from there?
Yeah, it's a good racket. The front even pays off for those $10 sucker checks from the Lonely Hearts. Yuck!
No vision, as I've said before. No vision.
Okay, dream boy, what's the nightmare?
Suppose we set up a deal in every big city, or most of the big cities for a starter, where we took the goods off the hands of the fences and sold them in the markets we know about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
No more middlemen with information. Give me 2 years. I'll be the master fence, as the tabloids would say, in the whole country.
I begin to see.
Yeah, but you gotta have capital to start with.
I have it, children, I have it. Mama came through last night. Up to 20 grand. Only she thinks it's for setting up this Lonely Hearts routine across the country.
We are in business.
So this is love.
Maybe Margot might say. But to get along in this world, remember, love is not all. No, indeed. Love is not all.
In just a moment, Crime Does Not Pay will continue with Love Is Not All. Now we continue with Crime Does Not Pay, starring Ralph Forbes as Augustus J. Dryden in Love Is Not All. Elizabeth Hunter's money started the racket rolling for Gus Dryden and his cohorts. It took a little time, of course, and a fair amount of traveling on the part of Gus and Muggsy. But by dint of some silver-tongued persuasion and the occasional use of force, the business of disposing of stolen goods behind the facade of the Union of Lonely Hearts soon began to show a profit.
Where do you want to go tonight, Augustus?
Do you really want to go out, my dear?
Whatever you say.
I thought we might stay here tonight. We haven't had an evening alone in some time. I miss them.
Do you? Really? Do you know, Augustus, I should never have invested that money with you. Since then, well, look back. We've slowly drawn farther and farther apart.
You only think so, Elizabeth, because I've been devoting so much of my time to protecting your investment.
I see. So that's what you've been doing.
More, my dear. I've been earning money for you. Here, Elizabeth, my sweet.
What?
Your first dividend, 5%, $1,000.
Well, this is a surprise.
Why should it surprise you? You're my backer. You receive dividends.
It might be nice to know what our assets are, besides goodwill.
Elizabeth, you're serious. You'd really like a financial statement.
I may be emotional on some subjects, Augustus, But with finances, I try to be businesslike.
Admirable, my dear. Truly admirable.
Oh, Gus, why don't we stop this fencing?
Fencing? How do you mean that, dear?
All this talk about finances. I don't care, really. I want to know if you still feel about me the way you said you did that first day in your office.
Of course I do, Elizabeth.
Then when will the business be in condition so that you can take a trip with me?
A sort of honeymoon, my dear?
A real honeymoon, darling. South to Cuba, Venezuela, the Caribbean.
You make it sound enchanting. You really do.
When, Augustus?
Well, as you said yourself, when the business is on its feet.
And it isn't now with a 5% dividend?
Not where I want it. But the time will come, Elizabeth. Think of the happiness we have given us this far. Isn't that worth the postponing our own for a time? Isn't it, my dear? Margot, take a letter.
Yes, sir.
All right. My dear Elizabeth, herewith enclosed, please find your third quarterly dividend. The business is progressing rapidly, and the strides we are making seem to indicate an early return of your original capital and continued dividends. I hope to see you soon. As ever, Augustus. Well, that ought to hold her for a month or two.
Well, I hope so. She's been rather nasty on the phone. She insists you're in town, not out, like I keep telling her.
Augustus, I've called 12 times in 2 days. This girl has been telling me that you're out of town. Augustus, I want her fired at once. She lies.
But I have been out of town, my dear, until a few moments ago. And Margot will bear me out in that.
Well, that's true, Mrs. Hunter.
It's not true. I know. I saw you come in early this morning.
Elizabeth, you've been spying.
Augustus, a woman will do many things to save her pride.
I see. And you feel that I'm destroying your pride?
I think you've taken me, Augustus. I don't like the feeling of that.
You've been receiving dividends regularly, large ones.
I don't care about the financial side of our dealings, Augustus. But you use emotion to get me into business with you. That's nasty.
Look out, boy. There she blows.
That's a hard word, Elizabeth.
For a hard fact. You never had any intention of marrying me. Your talk of love and maturity was just that. Talk.
Really, my dear, this is childish. And in front of Miss Wells.
I leave, if you'll permit me. No, stay. You probably know all about everything, with details. Augustus, I'm pulling out.
I'm dreadfully sorry you're taking things this way.
You'll be more sorry in a moment. I've learned the hard way, Augustus. Now I'm being hard. I want the balance of my capital with you, some $17,000. I want it now.
Surely, Elizabeth, you don't expect me to have that much cash in the office.
I'll take a check. You can come to the bank and have it certified for me.
Well, the firm's balance is not large. You know, furniture for the club in Frisco, advertising in Denver.
Augustus, once I thought you were a fascinating rascal. Now I think there's something dirty about you. You'll hear from me, Augustus, and you won't like what you'll hear. Ah, phew.
You needn't do that letter, Margot.
Trouble, Gus.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it. Once she cools down...
I don't think she will. That kind of woman...
is like every other woman. You're all ashamed to be shown up as suckers. You hate to admit that you're taken. The last thing in the world you want to admit in public is that love is not all. She won't make trouble, Margot. Not on your life. I'll come back here, my beautiful. We have more important things to talk about.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
May I see the counselor, please? Mr. Dryden, I mean.
Can I help you?
Well, no, it's a delicate matter.
Mr. Dryden is in conference with Mr. Penfield, but I'll see.
Yes, baby.
Mr. Connell is here to see you, Mr. Dryden. I told him you were in conference.
Well, can't he wait till I'm through with Muggsy? That last haul of hot silver, what a take.
Can you wait a few minutes, Mr. Connell?
Well, I'm rather in a hurry. My problem won't take long.
Mr. Dryden, Mr. Connell is rather in a hurry.
All right, I'll be out.
He'll be right with you, Mr. Connell.
Thank you.
Margot. Miss Wells. Is this Mr. Connell?
Yes, sir, Mr. Dryden.
Oh, how do you do, Mr. Connell? My associate, Mr. Penfield.
How are you? I'm fine. One moment, please. All right, Mrs. Hunter, come in, please. Are these the three of them?
Hey, what gives? May I inquire what this is all about, Mr. Connell?
Yes, Sergeant. The Wells woman, Penfield, and Mr. Dryden himself.
Sergeant? Yes, Sergeant Connell, fraud squad. With 2 warrants, Dryden. One for your arrest, and the other to search the place.
Well, this is ridiculous. In the first place, I never saw this woman before in my life. In the second place, I'd like to know what the charge is.
Simple fraud. For now, after we've examined the files, it'll probably be using the mails to defraud. Federal.
Well, this is preposterous. What could I have defrauded this person of?
Besides my self-respect, Mr. Dryden, merely $10 for which I have the canceled check. $10 paid to you for the purpose of obtaining introductions to people with whom I might be friends. And since you failed to perform that service, you defrauded me. Isn't that right, Sergeant?
Exactly right, ma'am. Now, I'll just have a look at those files.
And there are some more in the closet in the other office.
Well, perhaps I'll look at those first.
I deny everything, and I deny you the right to my private files.
Warrant here, Dryden.
I'm getting out of here. Margot, let's scram.
That's your life.
You stay where you are. Weiner, Matson, on the door, men. Now, those other files, Dryden.
I'll sue for false arrest. I'll have you broken, Colonel.
Out of my way.
Out of my way, I said.
All right, that the closer, Mrs. Hunter?
Yes, that's it.
I warn you.
Save it, Dryden.
Now, Sergeant, isn't there some way we can talk this over?
Don't crawl, Gus. Spare me that, at least. Don't crawl.
Well. Mrs. Hunter, you've unearthed something here. This man runs, well, it looks like a nationwide network of fences.
What?
To dispose of stolen goods behind his Lonely Hearts front. This is far bigger than we thought.
So that's what you used my money for?
Look here, Sergeant. Don't be a fool. Just because there's a woman here isn't... Well, I still think we can talk it over.
Yes, you can talk it over. With a judge and jury. You better call your mouthpiece, Dryden. From the looks of this file, get going now. We're all heading downtown.
Crime does not pay. Ralph Forbes, who starred as Augustus Dryden in Love Is Not All, will be back with you in just a moment. Now, here in person is Ralph Forbes.
On the surface, Gus Dryden was a rather likable rascal, I suppose. But when you take the point of view that he used the hopes and dreams of everyday men and women to cloak his more nefarious enterprises, and then compounded the felony by preying on and destroying those dreams, he ceases to seem likable and shows up in his proper light as a rather despicable kind of man who received exactly what he deserved. And there should be pity for the gullible, lonely people who paid in money and heartache. The cost to them was not small. Always, for all concerned, the victim as well as the criminal, crime does not pay.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Crime Does Not Pay is written by Ira Marion and directed by Marks B. Loeb, with music composed and conducted by John Garth. Technical consultant is Burton B. Turkis. The events, characters, and names used in the story you have just heard are fictitious. Any similarity is purely coincidental.
The National Broadcasting Company presents Counterspy.
Washington, calling David Harding, Counterspy.
Harding, Counterspy, calling Washington.
United States Counterspy, especially appointed to investigate and combat the enemies of our country, both at home and abroad. These Counterspy reports to the American people are brought to you each week at this time. Now, the case of the captured contact.
Hello, Mr. Harding? Mr. David Harding?
No, this is Mr. Harding's assistant, Harry Peters.
I am calling from Baltimore. I must speak to Mr. Harding in person. Did he not receive my letter?
Who is this, please?
I signed the letter only with the name Roland.
Just a moment. Harding speaking.
Mr. Harding, this is Roland. You received my letter, no?
I'd like to know who you really are.
Full details I cannot give over the telephone, but I give a name, Dr. Maximo.
Dr. Maximo?
Yes. I have been in your country lecturing on bacteriology. My real purpose was something else, and now I realize I have been making a terrible mistake for years.
Yes?
I can correct it only one way, to tell everything to the United States counterspies.
Well, you're only 45 minutes by train from Washington.
Oh, no, I dare not move from this hotel room. My life.
What hotel?
The Gainsborough, room 819.
Huh?
I beg you to come, Mr. Harding. What I must tell you is of the first importance.
Well, I'll see about it, Dr. Maximo. Goodbye.
Mr. Harding... young lady, this is Mr. Jones in room 819. You have I believe it is called a house detective. Mr. Blaine is his name. I believe my life is in danger. Would you please ask him to come to my room at once?
And I say to you, comrades of this International Congress for Peace, our chief enemy in the world is America. Its ruling circles are composed of nothing but warmongers, imperialists, slaves of Wall Street, and enemies of the peace-loving democratic nations of the world.
Oh, that's the end of the record, I guess. Be glad to. What's the date on that?
July 12th, 3 years ago. Made by our Paris attaché during one of those fake peace congresses held by Iron Curtain followers in Paris.
Well, now play a bit of our phone conversation with Dr. Maximo tonight.
Yep.
Hello, Mr. Harding? Mr. David Harding?
No, this is Mr. Harding's assistant, Harry Peters.
I am calling from Baltimore. I must speak to Mr. Harding in person. Did he not receive my letter?
The same boy.
Who is this, please?
I signed the letter only with the name Roland.
Yes, that's the same man. Don't you think so, Peters?
Sure, it's the same fellow.
Well, here's our file jacket on him. Roland Maximo, graduate of the University of Catania in 1911 at the age of 22.
Makes him 62 now.
Became full professor of medicine specializing in bacteriology in 1919.
Right after the First World War.
Secretly joined the International Revolutionary Movement the following year.
And that's the man who's been in this country for months, lecturing from coast to coast.
On bacteriology.
Routine reports on his lectures here, Chief. They say he'd end every lecture with a plea against bacteriological warfare. In the same breath, accusing us of planning to use it. I'm amazed he got away with it, Dave.
Well, this was all before the Cold War turned hot. Well, Peters, if this man is ready, as he says, to turn against his masters in Catania, we'd better go see him.
Oh, we can still easily make Baltimore by midnight, Chief.
Well, I had the Baltimore field office send over a man meanwhile. But let's hop.
You, mind my asking, Mr. Jones, what kind of danger your life's in? I have been threatened. Have you the time, Mr. Blaine?
It's 10 past 11.
I oughtn't to be sitting here in your room all night. I'm a house deck. My spot's in the lobby, keeping an eye out for bookies. Bookies? A horse player and other kind of unwelcome riffraff. You racketeer? Some kind of hotshot? Hotshot? Yeah. For say. Hey, maybe you're a squealer.
You're going to rat on your pals, and they want to knock you over.
Yes, Mr. Blaine. You might say I'm going to squeal and that my pals want to knock me over.
Hey, what's that? It's fire. There's fire in the joint.
Mr. Blaine, wait.
I'll say there's fire. I gotta go see. You hear them all yelling?
Mr. Blaine, I beg you, do not leave the room.
You wait. I'll be right back.
Mr. Blaine!
Hello, Ellery. What are you doing in the lobby? I wanted you up in room 819 with Dr. Maximo.
When I got here, Mr. Harding, the whole hotel was in an uproar. They said fire, and the fire chief wouldn't let me in, Counterspy or not.
Fire, Ellery?
8th floor. Just now they found out it was a false alarm.
False alarm. Come on, room 819. Come on, Peters, Ellery. Call the house detective, Peters.
No use. 3 bullets.
I'm Harding, Dr. Maximo. Who did this?
I did not see. The door opened. I don't know. More important, my confession. You must catch my contact. Will lead you to everything.
Your contact, yes.
Name?
Yes, his name.
George.
George what? Where?
Never told last name. Only George. Small man.
Yes, small man, but what city? Where?
Left eye.
Left eye? What about it?
Left eye.
They've silenced him for good, Mr. Harding. Yes. And we've got to find a man called George with something unusual about his left eye. One man among 150 million people.
Listen, Eddie, this is the rest of what Mama writes.
Yeah?
They came this afternoon, special delivery. Next week your father has to be in Buffalo for a meeting of his fraternal organization. And if we could drive through Columbus, we could spend the weekend with you and Edward.
The weekend? Well, I can stand it if they can, baby. Your old man's a pretty good kegler.
Kegler?
Bowler, fancy word.
Oh. What kind of a day at the shop?
Blueprints, as usual. What's for supper?
I almost forgot. You going to be on the road again next week?
No, hon, but I've been talking with Sam about a good chance for a blueprint shop over in Cobbsville. Going to be a big industrial town. I thought we ought to open up there, get in on the ground floor.
Cobbsville? Gee, we don't know anybody there.
Well, not definite yet anyway. And anyway, what's for supper?
Salisbury steak.
You mean hamburger.
Oh, maybe that's Claire Siegel. I saw her at the market. She said maybe she and Herbert...
No, I'll brush her off.
Only do it nicely, Eddie.
Hello?
Hello, George.
Oh, yeah.
This is Arthur.
Uh-huh. Hiya.
I have just had some good news from Baltimore.
Yeah?
You won't have to move to Cobbsville. You won't have to leave Columbus. You're quite safe here.
Oh, fine.
I shall be in touch with you soon for further assignment.
Okay, Arthur.
Don't use my name. Goodbye, George.
Yeah. So long.
That wasn't Claire Siegel, was it, Ed?
Oh, no, it was, a fellow I was in touch with on this Cobbsville business, but he says forget it. How soon is that Salisbury hamburger going to be ready?
There are the lights of Washington, Chief. Well, it's obvious, Peters. Dr. Maximo's ex-comrades found out he intended to talk to us and pulled that fake fire alarm as a cover for liquidating him. Now, the next most important man to get is this George with the strange left eye. How do we find George? Well, as Dr. Maximo traveled around lecturing, posing as a friendly scientist, he must have been reporting on the progress of American research in bacteriological warfare.
Then George must have been a contact who met him from time to time on his travels.
Yeah, that's it. The moment we get back to Washington tonight, we'll lay out on a map the exact itinerary Dr. Maximo followed.
We've got the itinerary laid out, Chief.
Quick work. Get any sleep last night after we got back?
About an hour.
Lucky you.
Here's the map room, Dad. Now, each pin on the map here represents a stopping place. Now, the dates of arrival and departure for each location are on the flag.
Landed New York, August 29th.
Mm-hmm. And here's the typed-up schedule of the modes of travel that Dr. Maximo used.
Itinerary took him coast to coast and back. Stopped in 5, 10, 22 places.
All either universities or industrial towns with important research labs.
I'll tell you what, Peters. We'll prepare a directive to our field offices in these 22 localities. We want the details on everything Dr. Maximo did, everybody he saw, in each place.
Maximo was a bacteriologist, Chief. His information was technical. Now, it follows that the contact had to know something about bacteriology. Maybe he had to make copies, microfilm, or blueprints.
Right. Well, list all bacteriologists in the country. Every research laboratory with employees present and past, even the clerical staff. Then we'll cross-check that list against the list we get of people Dr. Maximo met. Somewhere among all these people, we've got to find George.
You are listening to the case of the captured contact on Counterspy. The chimes are your invitation to a bright Sunday evening lineup over most of these same NBC stations tonight. Tallulah MCs another gala broadcast of The Big Show. The Phil Harris Alice Faye Show brings you more delightful adventures. And then Heather Hopper presents dramatized stories of the stars. Now, back to Counterspy.
Good morning, Dr. Phillips. My name's Taylor, United States Counterspies. We're making up a national directory of all personnel in bacteriology in case of a national emergency. Now, I wonder if you'd mind helping us out.
Hello, Professor Thorne. My name's Ellery, sir, United States Counterspies. I've just arrived in Locust City. I'd like to come out to the university laboratory.
Good afternoon, Mr. Zachary. Taylor, Counterspies. You've got a large technical staff here in your company laboratories, and we're making up a directory.
That's fine, Dr. Loomis. Now, if I could see your passport.
Oh, much obliged for your cooperation, Professor Marks. Just one more thing. About this man, George Rackett, who worked here as a laboratory technician 3 years ago. Can we examine into him a little more, sir?
There's the whole list, Mr. Harding. The names only.
Well, the facts about them?
On a card file out in my office. They're to be punched for automatic sorting.
Well, have we got the dope on which of these were actually in the area of Dr. Maximo's trip at the time he made it?
Yes, Chief. That's one of the classification symbols. Now, the cards will be ready for the machines by early tomorrow morning, I'd say.
All right, we'll run them off then.
I'm setting the machine now, Chief.
Well, first, anybody whose first, middle, or last name is George.
Right.
And second, who were in the area of Dr. Maximo's trip?
Symbol 7.
Third, those with eye trouble, the left eye especially. All right, shoot.
Even at this speed, Chief, it'll take some time. There are thousands of cards. $78 cards called out, Chief.
All right, now classify by areas and shoot them out to the agents in charge. But, Peters, the trouble is George is most likely not a real name at all, but a code name.
That's a cheery thought.
Morning, madam. My name's Taylor. I'm from the New Orleans City Directory, checking on all inhabitants. I understand you have a tenant here named George Sperry, works for the university laboratory.
Excuse me, Mrs. T.J. George. I'm from the local civil defense organization. My name's Ellery. We're looking for volunteer aircraft spotters.
All
very interesting, Chief. Adding up to nothing.
Every one of those 78 a clean record?
Well, one fellow used to work at a lab in Kansas City. He turned out to be a minor embezzler from Philadelphia. Another man was an escaped convict. 2 others were aliens who entered the country illegally. 11 of them met or heard Dr. Maximo, but not one has a single questionable association.
And all of these, named George, who were in that area, had some trouble with the left eye.
Well, it kind of washes out there, Dave. Most of these people wear glasses, and most of them, the left eye is weaker than the right. One man's practically blind in his left eye, but he's 71 years old and stone deaf.
This eye business bothers me. There's a chief identifying fact that came to Dr. Maximo's mind. Peters, instead of looking for George by name and profession, let's look for him through the eyes.
Oh? You mean through oculists? Opticians? Eye doctors? Clinics?
Well, if a man's left eye is so noticeable, it's fair to suppose that he consults somebody about it.
This job gets bigger and bigger, Chief.
Well, incidentally, include the manufacturers of artificial eyes on that checklist.
Okay. The eyes have it.
Hiya, baby.
Hello, Ed. Tough day?
6 of one, 6 of the other.
How about a movie tonight?
Oh, honey. I'll get it, hon.
Okay, do that, Eddie.
Yeah, hello?
George?
Yeah.
This is Arthur.
Oh, hiya.
An important job for you, George. In Washington, D.C.
Oh?
A meeting. It's very dangerous, but it's necessary. I am leaving here tonight. You get a train tomorrow afternoon.
Well, when does the customer expect to see me?
Tuesday, but...
Tuesday? Well, then what's the point of my going tomorrow? I'll leave Monday.
You're supposed to take orders without question, George.
Well, you know I've got this trouble with my eye. I've got an appointment with an eye doctor Monday morning. Been trying for weeks to see him.
Well, in that case...
where'll I find you?
You have to go to the Hotel Finlay. Register under your own name. We'll meet after that. That is all.
Hotel Finlay. So long. Hon, Washington next for me. Big deal.
Good morning. Name's Taylor, Counterspies. I understand you're the leading optician in Kansas City, and
Yes, Mr. Strauss, we're checking all oculists in this section. In case of national emergency, any man with medical understanding might... Oh, by the way, have you any patrons with really serious trouble in the left eye?
I know you're a busy man, Dr. Choate. I just arrived in Columbus this morning, and I understand you're the top eye man in the city.
40 years at it, young fellow.
Well, now, this is highly confidential, Dr. Choate. But have you a man patient who's a bacteriologist?
No, nothing like that.
Maybe a man who once worked in a research laboratory on bacteriology?
No, not as far as I know. Nearest thing to a lab worker on my list is Edward Stringer.
Oh?
His left eye, well, it's really strange. Muscles of the lid are so weak his left eyelid's practically closed all the time. Only he's no bacteriologist. Understands a lot about medicine, for a layman, mind you. But he's a partner in the Red Arrow Duplicating Company.
Red Arrow Duplicating?
Yes, photostats, blueprints, and so forth.
Oh. Thanks very much, Dr. Choate.
From Harding, Washington, to C.S. Taylor on assignment, Columbus. Continue check on Edward Stringer. Peters and I flying to join you.
This Edward Stringer's been married 7 years, Mr. Harding. No children. 5-room, 2-story frame house on Hawthorne Road. Age 33. Wife Alice, age 30, from Utah.
That's wonderful.
I've had no chance to get a look at Stringer, but Dr. Choate says his left eyelid is almost fully closed all the time.
Oh, anybody would remember that. Yeah. Well, go on, Taylor.
Well, Stringer and a man named Samuel E. Carpenter together own a blueprint and photostat shop, number 16 Harper Street. In business 4 years. Stringer's traveled a good deal, according to Carpenter.
Well, you didn't explain your interest, I hope.
Oh, no, sir. No, well, what I did is I arranged with the airlines here to appear as their representative.
Oh.
That way I could ask how much the partners traveled, where to, and so on.
Smart gag, Taylor.
Well, according to Carpenter, Stringer does the traveling for the pair, handles good-size orders outside the city. Sam Carpenter mentioned half a dozen cities, and every one of them was on Dr. Maximo's itinerary.
Well, does Stringer know anything about bacteriology?
Well, Carpenter said that was one of their business assets, Mr. Harding. Stringer majored in bacteriology at Hillman College. He never graduated, but kept up his interest.
I see.
You see, that makes their shop useful to firms with technical documents to be duplicated.
Well, that's a good job, Taylor. We're getting hot, Peter. One more visit to Sam Carpenter. He'll know where Edward Stringer is, and we close in.
And now there's a new and very important assignment for you, George. Right here in Washington.
What'll it be, Arthur?
I'm soon to go home. You are to take my place as chief of contacts. Today and tomorrow. As the others arrive in Washington, they will come here to you, in one pose or another. There is only one matter.
Yeah?
That eye of yours. It is so easily remembered.
I guess so, and it drives me nuts myself, but I got a doctor back in Columbus. He says he can fix it. Take maybe 6 months, eye exercises, maybe even an operation, but...
Hey, you expect anyone, George?
Maybe it's a chambermaid. I'll tell her to come back later. Oh, yeah?
Edward Stringer?
Yeah.
Mind if we come in? Come on, Peter.
Hey, just a second.
Close the door, Peter. Got it. We're United States Counterspy, Stringer.
We'll have to ask who this other man is.
Stringer, you have a right not to speak at all.
I know, but, well, it's all over, isn't it?
Yes, it is, George.
Okay. I always expected to get caught. This man has been my boss. He's called Arthur. That's all I know about him. I'll tell you everything else you want to know, all about everybody, even help you catch him.
You fool. You traitor.
You've got it wrong, Arthur. He's a traitor to us, not to you.
Me a traitor? I've been working for peace.
What?
Make the other side just as strong as the United States, and then neither side will dare go to war.
Oh, Stringer, how sick can you get?
Got something there, Peters. It's a question whether a man like this belongs in a penitentiary or a hospital for the mentally ill. Anyway, both of you, you're now under arrest by the United States government.
You've just heard another Counterspy report to the American people, brought to you each week at the same time. Next week's report, the case of the double-crossing defender. Tonight's Counterspy program originated in New York, was directed by Marks B. Loeb, dramatized by Paul R. Milton, and featured Don McLaughlin and Mandel Kramer. Lionel Rico speaking. Counterspy is a Phillips H. Lord production.
This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.